Hello everyone! Welcome to another stream of Love, Money, Rock and Roll. Today, this stream is not going to end until this goddamn route is all but done. It's been taking forever, it's dragging on a little bit too much. So, yeah, I'm not ending the stream until this chapter is done. But yeah, hopefully you all enjoy. Nico-san! Kagome came at me menacingly. Wait, I'm almost done talking. So I'm trying to say that Kobayashi-jun is just like an alien to us. We do not predict his actions based on our primitive thinking. Basically, at any second, he might do something no one could ever expect. I was quite proud of myself for coming up with a theory like that on the spot. It was fundamentally and thus couldn't be entirely wrong. Nico-san, do you really think he'll simply let my father go? Just wanted to say we can't exclude the possibility. Kagome was looking at me, frowning more and more, and finally exploded, stomping her foot, turned around, and quickly walked toward the exit of the park. Some date. I mumbled under my breath and ran after her. Hey, it's over. The date's over. Kagome was quickly walking in the direction of our hotel. What's wrong now? I caught up and started walking alongside her. Nico-san, you aren't helping at all. You keep talking nonsense. Kagome was spitting out these words without even looking at me. I don't know what to do. Are you happy now? I just want to support you. That's a crime. It's not a crime. What's wrong then? I want to be alone for now. I understand you have it hard and I respect your right to personal space, but this really isn't the time for it. I have to stay together, and you know that yourself. Kagome said nothing and just quickened her pace. We reached the hotel without saying a word. She clearly didn't want to talk, and I simply didn't know what else I could say. It seemed that just yesterday Kagome had been full of hope, and now she was drowning in black melancholy. No matter how I tried, I couldn't find how I was to blame for any of this. October would be over in half a day. We were walking through a Tokyo drowning in autumn, and I was looking at the setting sun, feeling it becoming more and more like winter. It wasn't even about the fact that it was getting colder in the day. Sun was lighting the earth at a different angle, the shadows were getting longer, and life was becoming slower and more idle. Let me check something real quick. Okay, all's good. I suddenly wanted to hibernate for half a year or so, to wake up in spring and joyfully discover that Kobayashi Corporation no longer cared about us. Kagome's father had been released and nothing stood between me and Kagome. However, some doubts crawled in with those thoughts. Were we even a good match for each other? You can say all you want that opposites attract, or north and south remains south. One second we felt good together, the next I couldn't understand Kagome at all. It was as if she'd been replaced by her evil twin sister. We were walking next to each other, but at the same time we were a world apart. Kagome didn't make dinner. She didn't do anything at all and spent the entire evening just staring out the window. It was the sort of thing that would have made me howl with boredom in 10 minutes flat, but Kagome seemed to be okay with it. Well, shall we talk maybe? Fine, I won't spin up the old tape again. Let's sit around and do nothing, but at least talk to me. Kagome, if I don't know what I've done wrong, I can't fix it. Maybe calling her by name plays its role. Kagome finally turned to me. Nobody is at fault here, Nico-san. Then why does it seem to me like you don't really think that? She sighed and turned back to the window. You've been living in Japan for a while, Nico-san. I must understand that the people of the East are more accepting of the inevitability of fate. I smirked, stood up, and walked around the room like a tiger yet to accept its cage. I've never believed in fate. You have a right not to. And more importantly, what do you mean by that? What is our fate? Hey, Krusty! How you doing today? Nobody can know that beforehand. I don't like hearing that from you. I'd expect it from anyone but you. Why is that? Kagome finally seemed to be taking interest in our conversation. Because you've always fought against your circumstances, and now you sound as if you've resigned yourself to them. Well, maybe I have. I have nothing to say to that, and just pace faster. It's your day off from work. Oh, good. A day to relax, right? Relax and enjoy your time home. I'm doing good. I'm making it my mission to complete this route today, this Kagome route. And so help me, Krusty, I'm gonna do it. If my name's not Ultima 39 something or other. But yeah, all's well. All is good. A few minutes passed by like that. Fine, but then why don't you want to leave, since you've resigned yourself? Does it really matter where you await your destiny? And it makes even less sense. If you really don't care, you could have met me halfway. In fact, I, of course, didn't believe that Kagome had suddenly stopped caring about everything, ready to accept the fact that nothing depended on her. Fate is full of surprises. She suddenly made a little smile. Even if it is, does it matter where you wait for those surprises? Take Kobayashi-jun. A sudden thought came to my mind. There's no way he believed in fate when he was young, getting ahead by effort alone. What do you mean effort? Kagome asked with surprise for some reason. Well, he founded Kobayashi Corporation and... He didn't found anything. She interrupted me with clear disdain. He just married, well, and joined a wealthy family, and it happens in Japan, you know. Her words shocked me. It wasn't even about the fact that I'd been revealed an inconvenient truth about the almighty head of the corporation, but rather that I could be so mistaken about this man. It really seemed to me at first glance that he was kind of a person that had achieved everything with his own strength. That's why... Your mother? Yes. She replied briefly and looked away. He couldn't acknowledge his affair with a maid, not to mention an illegitimate child. He would have lost everything. Isn't this fate, Nico-san? Kagome smiled sadly. Something rumbled outside in the distance. Thunderstorm at the end of October? Don't you think that's strange? She asked idly. Are you making fun of me? Not at all. It really is strange. What's strange is the way you're acting. I don't know how to deal with this. I'm a sensitive person. Have pity on me. I exclaimed, although I tried to show that it was irony rather than righteous anger. I'm not the one you should be asking for mercy. God, enough already. I stopped and kicked the bed angrily, which made the bouncy mattress jump into the air, while the blanket and pillows fell to the floor. I wanted to find the limit of my patience and congrats. Here it is. Are you happy now? But Kagome kept looking out the window, blah blah blah, deliberately paying no attention to me. Then, I was about to say I'd leave Tokyo alone, but realized I wouldn't be able to do it. After everything we'd gone through, ditching Kagome after one fight would be cowardice, even if I didn't know why she was acting like this. If you don't want to talk, I'm going to bed. Naturally, I didn't manage to fall asleep easily. Kagome soon grabbed a towel and walked out of the room. I tossed and turned for a while, didn't know for how long, but she wasn't returning. Christ, did she make a trip to an onsen trip in there? The toilet and the bathroom in the hotel were quite modest, albeit clean. It was hard for me to imagine what Kagome could be doing there for so long. Finally, I stood up, ran into the hallway, and bumped right into Kagome. What is it, Nico-san? Where have you been for so long? After our fight, I didn't want to show that I was worried, but everything was obvious anyway. Washing myself? Go to sleep, it's late. Kagome didn't argue, nesting on the side of the bed and turned toward the window. Naturally, search out of the option. Question. What the heck, Game? Why you doing this, huh? Flippin' weird. It's Halloween! Yay! Oh gosh. Okay, this is stuff I'm gonna read on my own, because this is too much. Like, what is any of this? This whole, section here is unnecessary. What is my character even talking about right now? What are you even talking about at the moment? What does this have to do with anything? thank you for that pointless thing that was there. Very cool. I appreciate ya. I snapped awake in cold sweat, jumping off the bed, desperately gasping for air. Felt like I was choking, that somebody had drained all the oxygen out of the room, and only an gas was getting into my lungs. I ran to the window and snatched the curtain aside. The sun was rising over Tokyo. Only then did I realize that it was nothing but a nightmare, but it felt more real than any dream I had in my 18 years of life. Or it was a dream. Oh, well, who cares about dreams? We're here for the Kagome route, not dreams. Maybe it was a memory from a previous life, where I'd been a Roman legionnaire who died somewhere in the forests of northern Europe. No, that's nonsense. I smirked under my breath, but my heart was still racing, reminding me that the theory was no worse than any other. Besides, the bed was empty. Apparently, Kagome had already woken up. I couldn't come to my senses after that weird dream. I always believed that it was stupid to try and explain the working of a sleeping brain from the logic and viewpoint of the waking mind. But you can laugh at the supernatural all you want until you face it yourself. I walked out to the street and bought a bun and soda from the vending machine, then walked around the hotel hoping to meet Kagome, but to no avail. On Saturday morning there were fewer people on the street than on weekdays, and that scared me a little. Every person I met seemed to be watching me suspiciously, as if I looked wrong. Ha ha. Time passed, but Kagome still hadn't returned. I paced back and forth across the room, worried. Only then did I notice the snow globe, the glass ball standing right in the middle of the table. How did she manage to bring it with her? Kagome only had a small bag. I discovered a piece of paper carefully folded under the ball. Iko-san, I can't take it anymore. You're in danger every second you spend with me. I'll handle everything myself. Please try to forget me. I don't think it will be too difficult. Well, I tore my eyes away from the note, turned my head a few times and blinked. No, it wasn't another dream. Read the note again, but still couldn't quite grasp the meaning of it. The words refused to form sentences, carrying only shreds of meaning. If it hadn't been for Kagome writing this, I would have thought it was a prank. I'd get all scared, start running around the hotel panicking. Then a door would open, and Kagome would be standing there with a snide smirk on her face. But I knew that when it happened, her handwriting was confident and steady. It clearly wasn't a spontaneous decision. And that snow globe, was it an accident that she left it there? Or a sign? Or as a sign? A symbol? Had Kagome been planning to do this from the very beginning? I grabbed the snow globe and swung as hard as I could, ready to break it against the wall. But then I froze and soon let my hand drop limp by my side. It could only be one thing I had left of Kagome, but it was too early to despair. I didn't know what she was going to do, but at least she knew where she would go. No matter what happened with our relationship, Kagome would never abandon her grandfather. I ran out of the hotel and sprinted in the direction of my house. Running there was quicker than taking a train. Slow train. The house didn't seem to change at all in all that time. Well, why would it? Only a month had passed. I groped for the keys in my pocket with tense fingers. Well, God willing. Moriyuki-san? I carefully opened the door and walked inside on tiptoes. My shoulders were the only ones in the hall, and the phone stand was covered with a thick layer of dust. Apparently the old man hasn't been bothering to clean, though I could hardly blame him. There was no one in the kitchen either, or in any of the other rooms. The fridge was empty, and it generally seemed like no one had lived here for an entire month. But how could that be? Gosuke had told me that he was visiting Moriyuki-san regularly. We met him yesterday ourselves, and a bit that before that Kagome had called from a payphone. I sank powerlessly to the floor next to the kotatsu. Hey, Asherfire, welcome to the stream. Sorry if it took me a while to notice ya. How's life treating ya, my friend? I hope you're doing good. Conscious. Saturday morning shows seemed even more vulgar to me than usual. Then I remembered Kyosuke again, ran to the hall, picked up the receiver with such a force that particles of dust flew all over the place. Hello? Kyosuke replied in a sleepy voice. It's me. Need to know where Moriyuki-san is. Didn't respond immediately, and then said in a very cautious tone, Nick, is that you? Where are you calling from? What does it matter? I'm calling from home. I decided to check whether my old house was still standing or had started to fall apart. Hey, Angel Love. How you doing today? It's good to see ya. Welcome to I'm Gonna Beat This Chapter No Matter What this stream. But how are you today? It's good to see yous. It's going good. Just stepped in before work. Aw, thanks a lot. Thanks for stopping by for a bit. Hopefully work goes well today. I'll be rooting for ya. I'll have a cup of tea with Moriyuki, staying at my place. My sarcasm sounded evil, and I grew angrier with every word. But can you imagine the dilemma I'm facing? It turned out he isn't here. Oh, the fridge could starve a cockroach to death. Everything is covered in a meter-thick layer of dust. If I didn't know that you've been visiting Moriyuki-san regularly, I'd think that. What would I think, Yosuke? Nick, calm down. Other than schoolwork. Good old schoolwork, right? Your favorite, Angel, right? I could clearly tell he was scared, even though we were divided by kilometers of wires. Calm down. Is there any reason to worry that I don't know about? Nick, you see, they said that it'd be better for both of you, for Iwamura-san too. Who's they? I asked coldly, not even particularly surprised. Some people, I don't know for sure. I told you whenever they asked me on the phone. Nick, I swear, I didn't want to deceive you, but you see, it all worked out fine in the end. Yeah, your favorite. You love it. You love to be done with it. I mean, you love it, right? Worked out. I scoffed and hung up. What a feat, friend. Of course, I had no right to blame Kyosuke. The corporation could be threatening him and his family. In the end, everyone places the safety of themselves and their loved ones above everyone else. So what's going on then? Kobayashi Jun had known where we were hiding all along? And why the theatrics with the hotel raid? But all those questions seemed deeply The most important was that I lost the girl I love, and I lost her in the worst way possible. What's a kilometer was supposed to be kilometer? Kilometer? I don't think that's a thing. I mean, it could be a thing. To the Googles, Ashen Fire, to the Googles. Watch it is a thing. It's like the evolved form of a kilometer. She left me. Had she stopped believing that I'd just be able to protect her, convinced herself that we needed to break up for the sake of my safety? The second option sounded even worse. When you do something for another person without even asking if they need or want you to, it usually ends in disaster. How many times have I made that mistake? And Kagome was much more persistent than me. If she decided something, it was that way for a lifetime. Suddenly I was overcome by primal fear. I felt like I hadn't just lost someone I loved, but then my very existence was in danger. Not because of Kobayashi Jun and his corporation, no. It was something formless, with no shape or mass. Something soulless and non-existent, the epitome of nothingness and the primal fear for my nightmare. Started pacing around the kitchen. There was much more space here than in the hotel room, but monotonous circular motion would hardly solve my problems. Then someone rang the doorbell. Sounded somewhat casual and brief if I hadn't left the house for a month. Was it a mailman, a neighbor, a salesman? While we'd been hiding in the mining village, life continued as usual in Tokyo. Everyday people had an idea that inside that old home, a little man with a broken heart was shaking in fear. But I hadn't expected it to be her. Oh, snap! Irina stood at the entrance with the usual expressive arrogant superiority. What is it, Nikolai? Surprised? I am. I moved aside, inviting her to come in. Irina sat behind the table and casually crossed her legs. Pretty lonely at your place, huh? As usual. Is that so? Well, maybe you're right. Why are you here? I sat across from her and gave her an intense look. Seems like kidnapping Kobayashi's granddaughter didn't quite work out, so you chose the other one instead. It's your Minnesotan talking. You always put an emphasis on the O. Oh, I gotcha. No problem, no problem. You know that too? We only found out recently, while looking into the strange behavior of Kobayashi Corporation regarding you and your girlfriend. But you don't know that yet, I caught myself. Kagome had left only this morning, so they probably didn't know we were no longer together. What? Irina squinted and leaned on the table as if trying to take a closer look at my face. That you won't be getting anything from Kagome. Where is she, by the way? I could feel I failed already. I should have picked my words more carefully. What does it matter? You need her to make demands of Kobayashi Jun, right? If that's the case, don't bother. He cares about Ellie more than her. Kagome had picked the perfect moment to leave, and it turned out a few hours later she could have ended up in KGB's hands. Why do you immediately think so badly of me? What, do you want to help us? Perhaps. She smiled slyly. And what will we need to do for it? How unusual. I see you're all business today. She slowly turned her head from side to side, as if looking around and not searching for anything in particular. So where's Iwamura-san, if I may ask? She went shopping. I responded, trying to keep my cool. Then I'll wait for her here. Kagome knows nothing. She never even met Kobayashi Jun. Oh, is that so? Yes, it is. I snapped back quite rudely, but Irina didn't react to it. If I want to. Suddenly felt uncomfortable to sit in the same spot, so I stood up and walked around the kitchen. I just want to live with her in Tokyo without constant surveillance from the corporation and whatever other well-meaning parties. Looked at her, meaningfully. How can you help me with that? Nikolai, not all our desires are destined to come true. Time for you to worry about yourself, don't you think? What do you mean? You must have realized already that it isn't safe for you to stay in this country. Virtually boiled up with anger inside, but managed to remain calm on the surface with a titanic effort. Wasn't ready to let Kagome go yet, and she definitely wasn't ready to leave Japan. I presume that to find myself somewhere safe, I'd have to work for you. I realize that it's useless to appeal to your sense of patriotism, so let's say you'll work for me personally. So what's your personal offer? Oh, for now, just to wait for your girlfriend to finish her shopping. I hemmed and returned to the table, slowly lowered myself onto the chair, and took a challenging pose. That will take a while. What are you talking about? Finally, a moment of discontent crossed Irina's face. I don't know where Kagome is now, and I don't think she'll be back. Even if she did return, as I said, she's of no use to you. Let me decide that myself, please, she said slowly with a threat in her voice. Be my guest. I'm in no hurry. You got a whole day ahead, and then another one, and another one after that. How untimely. She grit her teeth. What is? That the urges from under your belt threaten my plans? Well, excuse me. I smirked. Where is she then? It was clear that Irina was aggravated, but the Soviet intelligence agency clearly wasn't going to give up so easily. I'd like to know as well. I'm telling you, let's wait for Kagome together. You're behaving boldly for someone in your position, for someone who's got nothing to lose. Oh, Nikolai, you can't even imagine how many reasons you can find to cling to life when death appears near. Is that a threat? Pfft! She scoffed, stood up, and looked around again, as if she'd forgotten something. This conversation isn't over. You know where to find me. Now, in addition to all my other problems, I had the KGB spying on me again. I'd already managed to forget about the ever-vigilant, and to be honest, has been more than happy to. So then, even if a miracle happened and Kagome changed her mind and decided to return to, now she couldn't. To be honest, I didn't really understand what Irina wanted from her. Was she planning to hold her hostage? To blackmail Kobayashi-jun? He hadn't been open to negotiations, even for the sake of his legitimate granddaughter, and to reveal his secrets to spies from a hostile country. However, the KGB Major Irina could have much more complicated plan than I just couldn't understand yet. The evening was drawing near. The air outside seemed to have frozen solid, like in the paintings 19th century Russian artists I'd seen in the gallery when I was a child. Soviet Japan. It's something. I'm playing as a Russian kid, in Japan, and I guess there's a bunch of people after me or something. It's been an ongoing thing since the first stream of this game. Everyone is after me, Ashen Fire, everyone! And now it would be snowing in my hometown, but in Tokyo, snow was a rare occurrence even in winter. Irina had talked about returning to the motherland as something obvious, but I only had vague childhood memories from my time in the USSR, yet they were warm and seeped in with maternal love. But they were just bits of past life, and that itself seemed to me nothing more than a bedtime story my parents would read to me when I was little. Today my life was here. But if I might have seriously considered Irina's offer a week ago, everything was different now. Even the snow, yep. Although, truth be told, one person kept me in Japan when was no longer around. Snow is especially after me. But then again, it's after everyone. But I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. The telephone was still collecting dust on its stand in the hallway, obediently waiting for the moment I'd need it. I remembered when I was a child, it often seemed to me that inanimate objects had feelings too, that they would be happy to be of use and help their humans and disappointed if they were forgotten or worse, became obsolete or broken. How did the telephone feel, having spent a whole month in an empty house? Well, now it was its time to shine. Calling the Kobayashi estate and trying to talk to Ellie wasn't the best idea. Hang on, give me a second, guys. Give me a second here. Don't mind me. Alright. Bellies. Had it been long enough by now, letting her answer the phone. Didn't get a response immediately. Hello, could I please talk to Ellie-san? A long pause. I will check to see if Ellie-sama is home. I didn't know what I'd say even if she took the call. Most likely Kagome had gone to Kobayashi-jun in the morning. I had no idea where the conversation would lead, but he was the only one who could know where Kagome was, considering the obvious impossibility to contact him directly. Hello! Ellie's voice sounded tired. Hi, it's Nick. Please don't hang up. I really need your help and I would have no one else to turn to. I did some sort of reaction from her, but none followed. Hello? You're calling me after everything you've done? Finally came Ellie's cold reply. I know I have no right to do this. I understand that I don't even have the right to ask you for forgiveness, but you're the only person who can help me now. So what happened? Kagome, Iwamura, some dangerous people are after her. I have reason to think that she was at your grandfather's this morning. If you could just handle your psycho yourself. Ali shouted and hung up. I had really expected a different result. I guess a drowning man couldn't really think about his chances of survival as he grasped at the last straw. Easier to estimate negative outcomes in percentages. For example, you have 1% risk of dying of cancer, but nobody thinks about how you have an infinitely small chance of winning the lottery. Just go out and buy a ticket. However, to do the same thing over and over again to expect a different result, that's the definition of insanity. I grabbed the receiver and dialed Kioske. I need you here now. Where is this here? Yes, in a sleepy voice. Are you sleeping already? What is your night anime? Or what about your night anime? Here is my place. Nick, it's late already. He pleaded. Don't you think you owe me after everything you've done? I heard a deep, long sigh at the other end. Fine. Fine. I wasn't too anxious as I was waiting for him. Why would I be? After all, it was only my old fat friend. And I couldn't force myself to be angry at Kioske. He did what he did. Things probably wouldn't have turned out differently if he had done something else, and that's not the reason Kagome left me. Kioske was taking his time. When he finally rang the doorbell, the clock read a bit past 10. Nick, sorry that happened. Again. Alright, forget it. That's not what I want to talk about. What then? He looked up at me with an expression of fear and anxiety on his face. I need you to call Ellie. She won't listen to me, but she might talk to you. Ellie-sama? He exhaled, batting his eyes. Stop making stupid faces. This is a matter of life and death. What happened? I didn't want to share any unnecessary details with him, but I had neither the energy nor the desire to come up with excuses. Kagome left, and I think only Ellie's grandfather might know where she is now. You think she talked to me? I don't have a better option at the moment. He pursed his lips, but still slowly put his head on the receiver. What's your number, and what do I have to say? Their butler, or whoever, called Ellie to the phone at such a late hour with clear reluctance. Ellie-sama-san, Kobayashi-san. Kioske was panicking terribly and speaking gibberish, but that was probably for the better. People usually have more patience for children than those with special needs. Judging by Kioske's forced expression, I could see that Ellie was telling him something. First I wanted to put my ear against the receiver, but then realized he wouldn't be able to say a word like that. Yes, I'm Nick's friend. Yes, he asked me to call you. Where is he? He's here, standing right next to me. He cast a fearful glance at me, and I nodded approvingly. Ellie started speaking loudly, but I couldn't hear the words. Okay, give it to me. I snatched the receiver out of his hands. Ellie, just listen to me for a moment. You don't have to help me, but help Iwamura. She's your cousin. The angry babbling on the other end stopped abruptly. I don't have time to explain all the details, but it's true. Your grandfather had an affair with a maid when he was young, so... Ellie, if you think such a blatant lie would make me want to help you... She said slowly, but then went quiet, as if waiting for me to continue. If you don't believe me, ask your grandfather. I don't think he'll lie about it. Not after everything that's happened. I definitely will. She replied abruptly and hung up. I didn't know if one could call it progress, but at least we'd move somewhere. Is that true? The entire time Kioske stood next to me without saying a word, apparently in shock. Well, yes, it is. But how? It's a long and complicated story. I only found out recently. I could see that Kioske was barely holding himself back from bombarding me with questions. But I don't think that after everything that happened, I should give you the details. Yeah, right. Sorry. He lowered his head in acceptance. Thank you for your help. I think you should better go. It's already late. Alright, call me if you need anything. Right. I closed the door after he'd left and stared at the silent telephone for a while. Of course it was stupid to count on Ellie's help, but if she would talk to her grandfather about Kagome, it could make him think. On the other hand, what was I trying to achieve? Kobayashi-jun would hardly do any harm to Kagome. I had more than enough evidence to believe that. So now everything depended on her choice alone, but I couldn't influence if I never saw her again. I kept pacing around the house almost until morning, thinking through a plan of action, but eventually fatigue got the best of me. Peh, some Halloween this was, huh? And now it's November. 1987, that was a long time ago. Of course, I couldn't just appear at Kobayashi Corporation's offices and request a meeting with their CEO. As a point of fact, I was a criminal and could expect to find myself behind bars at any moment. But now it was clear that Kobayashi-jun had known all along where Kagome and I had been hiding. At least our approximate location. He probably also knew I'd return home by now. which meant that my encounter with the police, or worse, Kagemaru, was just a matter of time, and the people decided to decide what happened would not be the CEO Kobayashi, but his newfound granddaughter. Of course, I had no reason to believe that Kagome would agree to everything the old man had prepared for me, but I also couldn't just believe that she'd been able to change his mind if he decided to take action. I couldn't expect help from anyone. I only had myself to rely on. 40 years. Sheesh. Oh my gosh, I wasn't even alive that long ago. I would be alive 3 years later, but still. And that meant at the very minimum I couldn't stay here. Of course, it was hard to leave the home I had just returned to, but at least I had more time than a month ago, when Kagome and I ran away from Tokyo with little to our name. I packed some things, opened the front door, and froze at the doorstep. I turned around and cast one last glance down at the dusty, covered hallway. Of course, if I was lucky enough to find Kagome and persuade her our relationship wasn't over, I could return. But if not, I kicked aside the fallen leaves with the tip of my boot and prepared to set off when the phone rang. It couldn't hurt to take one last call, right? Nick, is that you? Ellie asked without waiting for my reply. To say I was surprised would be an understatement. Yes, it's me. I talked to my grandpa and I could tell she was extremely nervous. Well, he didn't confirm your allegations directly, but I know that sometimes his silence means more than any words. Decided to call me. I quickly filled in the pause that followed. If you know anything else, I want to hear it. Okay, let's meet and I'll tell you everything. Can you come alone? I can. Let's meet at the bar in an hour. In an hour and a half. See ya. She said briefly and hung up. Didn't it seem like one of Kobayashi Jun's tricks? He wouldn't put Ellie at risk. For a second time. But I still had some reservations. Ellie could bring a tail even against her will. I had to be prepared for that. Our meeting wasn't for an hour and a half until I hurried at the bar at full speed. When I stormed in and looked at the surprised bartender, the clock read 2. Oh, Kolya, haven't seen you in a while. There's been rumors lately. No time for that. I need to ask you for a favor as a friend. I'm listening. I'm having a meeting with the girl at your bar in a bit, but I'm afraid she might be followed, so there's something I want to ask you to do. You don't have any customers yet anyway. I made a wide gesture indicating the empty tables. When she comes, call her in and close the bar. If someone tries to break in, we'll leave through the back door. I remember you have one, right? Aren't there easier ways to meet a girl in private? His salacious smile didn't suit the situation at all. It's not about that. I have far more important things on my mind than hooking up with broads. It's a matter of life and death. The bartender's expression changed, and he stared intensely at me for a while, as if trying to recall a theorem long forgotten. And what if someone comes before her? Well, then close the bar down now. I don't know. He paused before replying. Fine, but only for you. There was no need to tell the bartender what was really going on, and neither and I had any desire to, so I just kept sitting at the counter with a glass of water. So, no beer for you? I need a clear mind. I see. So anyway, where have you been? Or is that a secret too? Was working as miner. I smirked sadly. You, a miner? The bartender laughed loudly and banged his fist against the counter a few times. Yeah, I get it. It's a good joke. I raised my arm and flexed my bicep. The bartender's smile vanished at once. I had to leave Tokyo for a while because I got in the way of the wrong people. What people? Suddenly, he squinted suspiciously and became unexpectedly serious. Well, your bar isn't in any danger, don't worry. I'm worried about you. Thank you, was all I managed to say. Of course, I didn't always take the huge, somewhat clumsy bartender, with his strange sense of humor and a deliberate aversion to personal space seriously, but I couldn't accuse him of a lack of sincerity. For the next hour, he just kept babbling about whatever, as if afraid to allow for a pause in his monologue even for a second. Finally, the agreed time arrived. Go take a look. She should be there already. If there's no one else around, call her in here. Sir, yes, sir. He saluted like a seasoned veteran and rushed outside. It didn't even take a minute for the door to open again and for Ellie to walk downstairs, accompanied by the sound of a bolt locking into place. The girl stopped at the counter, looked at me, and then checked her surroundings, confused. What's this all for, Nick? Do you want to kidnap me again? She asked with more surprise than fear. You could have been followed. I invited her to sit at a table in a far corner of the bar. The bartender stayed behind the counter, gave me a nod, then returned to his business, his whole demeanor trying to make it clear that he wasn't eavesdropping. You don't think much of me, after all. I'm not accusing you of bringing someone along, but they could be following you without you knowing. Who's they? Ellie wouldn't let it go. Whatever, doesn't matter, forget it. Let's just say I'm more comfortable here than outside. I don't even know why I'm here, and why I'm talking to you now, after what you and that girl did to me. And now you're calling her my cousin? Thank God she's not a sister. She smirked bitterly. I only just found out recently. I'm as surprised as you are. But if you think about it, it all makes sense. After kidnapping you, sorry again, it was difficult for me to look into her big piercing eyes. Had I ever apologized to her for the kidnapping? I couldn't remember. Well, I mean, I thought that something was off. Your grandfather could easily have captured us, but he didn't. Everything went too smoothly, like in some kind of spy movie. Until now, we've been hiding in a mining village, and I couldn't believe that we managed to hide from your corporation. When we returned to Tokyo, it turned out that Kyosuke had been lying to me, and Kagome's grandfather had been in the hands of Kobayashi Corporation all this time. So what point are you trying to make? What does it have to do with us being related? Ali interrupted me, irritated, patiently continued. Think for yourself. If your grandfather could have busted us at any moment, why didn't he? I don't know, and what does it matter? It was obvious that Ellie wasn't going to delve into my complex logical analysis. Okay, fine, but you spoke to him yesterday, right? I did. Ellie replied somewhat absent-mindedly. So what did he say? Nothing in particular. Silence means more than any words, to quote you. So what? Ellie kept being stubborn, like a person unwilling to acknowledge the obvious but painful truth. So he's perfectly aware of the fact that Kagome is his granddaughter? Nick, this isn't enough. Your words are the words of my kidnapper. I shouldn't even be here. I should have actually brought police with me. She was saying this fueled by emotion, but it was more anger at herself than resentment toward me. If you'd been 100% sure I was lying, you wouldn't have come here. She bit her lip, turned away, and stared at the bartender, who was slowly and even somewhat desperately wiping glasses at the far side of the counter. Let's say I believe you. What do you want from me? I smiled and straightened my shoulders, stiff from tension. As it happens, Kagome had decided that it was too dangerous for us to stay together and left. I'm sure she had nowhere else to go but to her grandfather. I don't know what she's going to do next, but it doesn't seem like a good idea to me. Just want me to be your Cupid after everything you two have put me through? She asked with clear hostility. Even if we're related, it doesn't mean anything. Well, in reality, it rather looked like I was trying to save my own skin. With Kagome around, I'd be safe from Kobayashi Corporation. Most terrifying was the fact that I wasn't sure whether that was my primary goal. I have a right to think that. To think what? Ali gave me a confused look. It seemed like I've been talking to myself here. You don't owe me or Kagome anything. Just asking you as a friend, as a human. Asking what, Nick? You can talk to your grandfather and find out where Kagome is now. If I could only see her for a couple minutes. Ellie pulled back, crossed her legs, and brought a thoughtful expression to her face, as if trying to solve a complicated mathematical problem. Why would I do that? Believe it or not, I don't need a sister like that. And we can help each other. Iwamura isn't particularly interested in becoming a Kobayashi either. To a certain extent, it was true. Kagome had had plenty of time to remind Kobayashi Jun of her existence. But she'd never done it. But right now, she's at my grandfather's, according to you. Ellie was also right in her own way. She had to go. There was no other choice. Next thing you'll say she sacrificed herself to save you. She smirked almost contemptuously. Well, I wouldn't go that far. Then what do you need, Nick? What is this all for? You look like a completely desperate man trying everything he can, even the most impossible option. I fidgeted in the chair and started looking all over, as if trying to find support elsewhere. But the bartender kept polishing his beer mugs, and there was no one else in the bar except me and Ellie. My plan was falling apart like a house of cards. Well, to be frank, I didn't have a plan to begin with. Ellie was right about that. Even if so, I don't see how you can help me. It all depends on my grandfather. I'm not going to cross him anymore. Even if he legitimizes Iwamura, well, it's like you said, she's his granddaughter, isn't he? Ali said coldly to the and slowly walked toward the exit. I had no reason to stop her. There was nothing else I could say. Ali looked at the bartender and ordered him in an imperative tone, "Let me out of here." The bartender first looked at me cautiously, but immediately realized that she had no right to keep her there, and dashed to unlock the front door. After Ali had left, I ordered some beer after all. The bartender obviously prudently decided to not initiate a conversation, and I was grateful for that. Do you think? I haven't heard anything. He didn't eavesdrop at all. He didn't. He immediately shouted and waved his hands. In reality, we would have had to be whispering in each other's ears to not be heard in such a tiny bar. So in that regard, I had no problems with him. Do you think I can show up at Kobayashi Corporation in the middle of the day and demand a meeting with Kobayashi Jun? He thought it through carefully and then replied very seriously. I wouldn't. Yeah, I guess it's a stupid idea. Thanks for the beer. Reached into my pocket for money, but the bartender stopped me immediately. It's on the house. What are you going to do now, Kolya? What would you do if you were me? If nothing is keeping you here? He started, but his expression changed, and he smiled. Well, it's up to you. Immediately recalled Irina's words, her sacrilegious offer to give her Kagome to secure my own safety. Of course I couldn't do that, but I also saw no safe future for myself in Tokyo. Hope we'll see each other again. Alright, let me check something real quick. Give me a second. Okay. All is good. I briefly stood up, left the bar that had become one of my favorite places in the city. Dots. I walked home in an almost kind of stupor. In the hall was the bag with belongings that I dropped there when I ran to meet Ellie. Telephone was still silent but looking somewhat neater, free of dust. It would turn out to be useful to me more than once over the last 24 hours. However, in the end, all those conversations had gotten me nowhere. Carefully ran my hand over the receiver as if petting a cat. The phone was silent, and then silence seemed to be very logical at this moment. There was nowhere to accept help from, but nowhere and nothing to hope for anymore. I grabbed the bag resolutely and walked out the door without looking back. My wallet was bulging comfortably. Taking that envelope from Moriyuki-san had been the right decision after all. Kagome at least wouldn't have any money trouble now. When I reached the station, it was already dark. Where had half the day gone? There wasn't a single person on the square in front of the station. Wouldn't have been surprised to see a tumbleweed. That's how Tokyo was saying farewell to me. Of course, I was just one of millions of people in the capital, and I wasn't demanding any special treatment, but I always believe an old friend will understand and support you in any situation. But in the end, Tokyo was more like a fickle girlfriend, forgetting about her old lover the moment his life became troubled. Well, be it that way. Be it that way. Oh god. Alright, I'm gonna read this to myself again. Had to kick off. Have a good stream. I'll see you later, Ash and Fire. Sorry if again it took a while to notice ya. I am so close to beating this, though. I'm so close. But yeah, have a good day, alright? Have a good, awesome day. I'll see you very soon, hopefully. And I wish you luck at work, my friend. I'll see you soon. Oh my god, this is too much. This is all for, like, a bad ending. Like, who cares? Just tell me about the bad ending. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck to you too, my friend. I'll see you soon. Uh-huh. Birds. Oh, I crossed the road and stopped at the driver's door. Is that really you? Nico-san? Kagome seemed happy for a moment, but her expression immediately grew dark. For those wondering what happened, I think, I lived a rough life. I went to jail. That looks like a lot of reading. I know! It's too much reading. Ah! Unexpected, huh? I laughed, but immediately started coughing, automatically reaching for the pack of cigarettes in my pocket, managed to restrain myself. Tokyo's a big place. She made a vague gesture with her hand and changed her grip on the wheel as if preparing for a sharp turn. All the more reason. Why are you here? We haven't seen each other for years and you're just going to stay quiet? How are you doing, Nico-san? Her voice sounded monotonous and uninterested. How could I be doing? I stepped back and ran the banks of my hand down my crumpled, dirty clothes from my neck to my waist, and flung my hands to the sides as if getting rid of negative energy. Still alive, as you can see. Well, I see. You see? Finally managed to make a proper smirk. What about you? Everything's fine. You got a nice car. She just said nothing and kept studying the dashboard. Is your grandfather okay? He died a few years ago. I'm very sorry about Moriyuki-san. I immediately responded. But I meant your other grandfather. Don't tell me you earned that car yourself. I tapped the door with my knuckles. The sound was unusually rich, more fitting for the halls of a majestic, blah 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 castle. What had to do with anything, Nico-san? Gomi finally showed some emotion, irritation to be more precise. You abandoned me, and now you appear after so many years. Suddenly noticed involuntarily that didn't have a wedding ring on her finger, and for devil knows what reason that made an irritating warmth appear deep inside me. Like I caught an accidental ray in the sun on a grey autumn day. Just to see how low I've fallen? Well, I can invite you in for a cup of sake. Shook the bag and the bottles clattered happily. My place is no 5-star hotel, sure, but even my old house was better. But it was taken to pay my debts. Would you ask your grandfather who did I owe and for what? Nico-san. Gomi raised her hand, looked at me coldly. All my righteous anger disappeared at once. You might think what I did was cruel, but I had no choice, Grandfather Kobayashi. She suddenly went quiet and bit her lip as if she said something inappropriate. Kobayashi-sama would never let you be otherwise. Oh, just don't go claiming it was all for my sake. Although deep inside, I knew in that many senses she was right. After all, I'm not a stranger to him. He couldn't. Kagome was desperately seeking the right words, and it was about to explode or burst into tears. Back then I didn't understand all the difficulties he had to face in life, and now you do. Interrupted her rudely, sold her soul to the devil, and for what? Never loved me in the first place? Nico-san! Reading like a robot. Just show it in my life again after all these years. Broke into a shout, Kagome flinched. Didn't have the right to blame her for what had happened. And if Kagome had done it all for her own sake, in the end, it's what everyone does. Mitsu and Catherine had disappeared from my life without bothering to ask for my opinions. My parents' death, meeting Kagome, prison, of course nothing happened the way I wanted to. It happened with the same the forces of nature, even the laws of physics. Although, never mind. I sighed powerlessly. Guess it's my fault I believed that the relationship could work out. All about Kobayashi Corporation. You and Kobayashi Jun are cut from the same cloth. Nico-san! Definitely about to fall into tears. What, you really think that your visit would cheer me up? You'd want to offer help, maybe money. Wouldn't say no to that, you know? Looked at me uncomprehendingly, then apparently reached for her wallet, but I immediately groaned. Enough. No, for a second I really thought I'd be able to take her money. Why not? We'd probably never see each other again, and my president taught me that you had to take what's given. Would still be a bribe, a ransom, a pile of dirty bills that would be the price Kagome would have to pay for my feelings. Nobody's fault. Sorry, this is a bad ending, so who cares? I'm, like, at my limit right now. Bad ending number 2, woo! The end. We did it, Angel Love. We did it. What, you don't like this ending? Yeah, me neither, actually. I don't know about this ending. Why is it taking so long? What's happening? Haha, it's bad, who cares? I know. Alright, let's try a different ending. What do you say, Angel Love? Whoa, we're here again, oh my gosh. I'm gonna free Ellie this time. My heart bled for Ellie. I had to stop this madness. With an effort, I walked to Ellie and untied her. Kagome sighed in disappointment and took a step back. I helped Ellie stand up. There was a great gratitude in her eyes, but at the same time stubbornness and determination. I've got to. She was mumbling as if she'd just woken up. I let her go, and the girl who bumping into creaking shelves fumbled toward the exit. Wait, I said rather for the sake of formality than really trying to stop her. Well, are you satisfied? Kagome wrapped her hands or arms around herself and looked like someone who had just been informed that the stock markets around the world had crashed. You must be out of your mind. I couldn't do anything other than this, no matter what. You should have known when you let me follow you. You were just trying to find someone to blame. Me? My crowd bounced back to me with a muffled echo under the ceilings of the warehouse. Was it me who kidnapped Ellie? Did I bring you here and force you to make a choice? If you decide to commit a crime, at least keep other people out of it. And all that matters to you is that you keep your hands clean. What matters to me is to stay alive. You shouldn't have let her go. I was already starting to realize that Kagome was right in a way. Even by some miracle, Ellie would keep quiet about seeing me here. It's my place they would comfort Iwamura. Didn't know whether I'd really handed her the death sentence, but I harbored no doubt that our life would never be the same. Probably leave my place. Pursed her lips and frowned. Not kicking you out, but you must realize that after this... Why, Nico-san? Finish it. Hand me over to Kobayashi Corporation. You might even receive a bounty. Better ending, please. I know. Where's the better ending? I think we found it, though. Unbearable to be there next to her, blamed for something. She was driving me to the damn warehouse, buried in darkness and forgotten. Seemed as if I was staying here a minute longer, I'd vanish into the sinister blackness. Left out onto the street, breathless and desperate, gasping for the cool night air. Ellie was nowhere to be seen. Could she find the road herself without getting lost in this industrial relay? Anyway, it was no longer my problem. Least of all in the world I liked to regretting anything. I wish I could change my decision. Not to leave Ellie tied up, but maybe at least pause to think about it. The modern world demands an instant decisions and actions, but at the same time doesn't tolerate mistakes and has no pity for those who make them. A strategy to take no action at all. A greater evil, acceptable among them. Don't resist evil with violence came to mind. Letting Ellie go, committed no direct violence, but left the room for others to do so in the future. Kagome left the warehouse and sat next to me. What are you planning to go do next? What am I supposed to do? I'm innocent. Snapped at her despite my internal agony. Justify myself to make myself be right at cost or not to be stranger. You need to judge that now, Nico-san. What are you going to do? To be honest, I wasn't prepared for this to happen. She smiled. What do you mean? Hardly assess the situation, not play the knight in shining armor. Man, this is just a lot of dialogue. Spoilers, this is also a bad ending, so again, I'm just gonna read this on my own. Sorry, this is too long. This is too long of a story. Wish it would remove, like, the filler dialogue and just have, like, the actual story and stuff. Sat in the taxi. Our relationship has changed. We're gonna die. We left the car. We're not safe. Ellie found her way back. We'll need protection soon. Yay. I forget my brain. Of course I did. I always forget my brain. If you all want to read this, like, on yourselves, the game is on Steam. But I have finally snapped. It is time to get through this. The story is way too goddamn long. I'm worried too. She responded calmly. In a world, does it look like you're suffering? Didn't do anything. Judge you? Who is? She shrugged. Nico-san. What do you mean? Don't think I'm in danger. That's right, you're in danger. You're gonna be the dead soon. I went to bed. Turning in my dream. Get up. Yay! It's Kakimaru's enormous face. Oh, I'm in trouble. Like you don't know, son of a brr. Get up, we're going for a ride. I think we're in trouble, Angel Love. I can go in your underwear. Wow. That's cool. Maybe maybe we can treat him to tea. Oh no. Sorry. Again, I'm at my limit. I'm at my limit right now, guys. The guy's going to attack me. He's bringing me to Kobayashi June. Oh, he's taking me to somewhere else. To, a place where I'm gonna get dead, probably. I told you. Blow by a wrench to my forehead. I was hit by a wrench, Angel. I came to my senses in complete darkness. I'm in walls. Okay, come on. Bam 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 bam. Where am I? Even gonna show? Nah, just flat out died. I just flat out died. Sorry, what? I was hit by a wrench, and I got dead. I got deaded. It's because I let Ellie go, and I guess Ellie told peoples. Okay, let's do the good ending now. What do you say, Angel Love? Let's do the good ending, maybe. I'm sorry. I am sorry. I understand I did the wrong thing. I realize I should have told you about meeting Himitsu right away. You also realize that I put us in danger to a degree. And now we can blissfully fast forward for a bit. You gotta go. Bye, Angel Love. I'll see you later. Have a good flipping day. And I will see you tonight or later today. Have a good one. I like the speedy music here. Really tickling the chords, tickling the ivories. Yeah, this game is definitely going on longer than I thought, for sure. And I think it is time to close at least Kagome's chapter. Bam, bam, ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-da-da-da. Dialogue, it's so much. She ran away, and there's Irina. How you doing, Irina? There's Kyosuke. Now we're gonna go to the bar and chat with Ellie. Hi, Ellie. We're all good. All is fine. All is well. Don't worry. Humans estimate the distances based on their memories and... Oops. And again, this part here is just too much. Like, what are we talking about here? Flight from the Earth as the moon would have seen the long as you voyage across the ocean and never left your neck of the woods. What does that have to do with the story at all? I don't know. Again, read this yourself, guys. read this yourself. My interest in this has died. These long bits here. But my home met me with the same silence. There was no Kagome, Moriyuki-san, or even Irina. I cast a sad look in the bag with my stuff that I dropped in the hall. Couldn't even really say what the saddest part was. The fact that I would have leave this home behind forever, or that my bag turned out to be so light. But I could no longer live in the dark. It was better to retreat now, collect my thoughts, regroup in a safe place, to fight for what's dear to me with renewed strength. Guess I didn't entirely believe that myself, but I always had the strange ability to pull myself together at critical moments. An important clarification at critical moments that weren't hopeless. In the same way, I was desperately clinging to the belief that not all was lost. It was dark already when I reached the metro station, and there wasn't a soul around. The whole scene resembled a set from Escape from Tokyo. Sorry, I'm just gonna check one more thing real quick. Don't mind me. Don't mind me. Don't mind me. Okay. Of course it was Sunday, but it seemed to me that the city itself had turned its back on me with contempt, not even giving me parting glance. I was going to Shinjuku to choose a destination to somewhere far from the capital. I haven't decided where exactly I'd be going. When you flee from something, it's not necessary to pick an exact destination. What matters is running fast enough. I sighed and I was about to get to the station when a piece of paper lying at the ground caught my attention. It was a flyer for Z Feel Z concert from a month ago. Picked it up and played it with my hands and smirked. Under different circumstances, a couple of words from me would have been enough. I could be playing in that band with Ellie. Surprising how quickly relationships change. At first I'd been her acquaintance, maybe a friend, and then I became her kidnapper, possibly even an enemy. What difference did it make now that it's hardly my fault? Ellie didn't want to help me with my search for Kagome. That wasn't her fault either. I also couldn't blame Kagome, because I loved her. That's how we ended up without anyone to blame and everyone a victim. No winners, but plenty of losers. I had every right to consider myself the main loser. I didn't even know what was keeping me from throwing myself under a train. Maybe this unreliability of this method of some innate part of my personality. Maybe the understanding that we live only once and it'll be no way out. Maybe a glimmer of hope that one day everything would be back to normal and we'd be together again. Didn't know what awaited me on the other side, but I knew for sure that Kagome was on this one. And even though the distance between us could be measured in light years, it seemed to be comprehensible and traversable. Definitely not this exact amount. So I'm in the square in front of the station once again, just deserted as before and headed for the station. Let this not be the last time. Let me return here one day. Nico-kun! But I didn't even reach the turnstiles. A voice I'd never expected to hear again pierced through me and brought me to a stop. Nico-kun, what are you doing here? I turned around with difficulty and looked at Himitsu. She looked her usual self, only the sad expression on her face seemed unnatural, as if she was wearing a mask. Apart from that, Himitsu didn't seem to have changed at all, and that was scary. Of course I didn't expect her to lash out and try to hit me, but her calmness, even indifferent, seemed unnatural. Was she worried at all? What happened at the festival? On the other hand, was much too worried. Hi there, what brought you here? Of course we'd also run to one another at my house yesterday or even earlier. Haven't been following you. Don't worry. I'm not worried at all. My voice sounded like I was offended that surprised even myself. So you told your father? She pursed her lips and lowered her eyes, trying to show she was offended. I'm not going to accuse you of anything. You see, I had to come back to Tokyo because right after conversation, some people came to the hotel where I'd been living. People looking for me, Himitsu. Well, maybe not just you, Nico-kun, but Iwamura-senpai too. Finally, she looked up to me angrily. Most likely. What difference does it make? You hadn't gotten involved with her. Come on, sunshine. I flung my arms up in the air and turned around. There still wasn't a soul in front of the station. It's not even about Kagome at all. I was involved in kidnapping Ellie, even if indirectly. The fact alone is more than enough for her grandfather. You made life difficult for me, not Iwamura. As long as you stand by her. Do you see her anywhere? Interrupted Himitsu, spreading my arms wide. Kagome's decided that I'm in danger. That as long as I stay with her, that's a wise decision. Mitsu scoffed maliciously. It wasn't like her at all. I don't think so. The sort of reaction from her offended me, but I had nothing to object with. Do you really love her, Nico-kun? What does that have to do? Although at this moment, the question was actually appropriate. I was holding a bag with my things and was about to leave Tokyo forever. So I was running away from love? Yes, I do, I replied quietly. Then what are you doing here? Mitsu cast a glance at the bag. I'm trying to meet Kagome. Wait, did I have the right to tell Mitsu about Kagome's relation to the Kobayashi family? New circumstances have emerged recently. What circumstances? What circumstances? I could feel more and more clearly that I was backing myself into a corner. Let's put it this way. Kagome probably isn't in danger, unlike me. And that's why you've decided to leave? You could say that. Ready to acknowledge my complete defeat. Nico-kun, you just had to accept my help. You mean your father's help? Isn't that the same thing? No, and the fact that you don't understand that makes it even worse. Even worse than what? I don't know what. Than everything. We hadn't met back then in the village. Then I realized that nothing would have changed. That life couldn't last for long. Kagome wouldn't have handled it. I could say with confidence how strongly she was burdened by the lack of money and the necessity to hide along with the absolute absence of any prospects. But even before that, in Tokyo, it had been clear that she felt out of place, like a person acutely aware of the lack of respect they believed they were due. Would you have kept pretending to be a family with Iwamura-senpai? You weren't pretending. I felt offended again. It was real to us. Apparently she doesn't agree, since she's gone. Mitsu took the initiative. And don't tell me she did it for you. If you loved someone, you would never leave that person. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. At this moment, I felt no empathy for Himitsu. Her one-sided love only irritated me. And moreover, the method she was trying to employ to get me to return her feelings caused disgust. Those are empty words. Just like your relationship with Iwamura, she omitted the senpai suffix, which rubbed me the wrong way. Well, what do you say I do then? I exclaimed and looked around cautiously. There was still no one around. If you're going to leave Tokyo? All confidence quickly vanished from her face. I could go with you. What for? If you really are in danger, it'll be easier together. And how, pray tell, would it be different from my life with Kagome in the village? I really love you, and I'll never leave you. Mitsu stepped forward me, coming up right next to me. Slightly staggered back. Nico-kun? I can't. I'm sorry. I broke into a run. Without looking back, having forgotten that I'd been about to go to Shinjuku. I was like, nuh-uh. I was running as if someone was chasing me, or maybe I was running away from myself, afraid somewhere deep inside to accept Himitsu's offer. A shameful and immoral offer, by its very nature defeatist and even criminal. I couldn't reciprocate, and I couldn't just change who I loved like they were gloves. If Kagome had left, it didn't mean I had the right to throw myself into the arms of the first girl I saw. Even if it was Himitsu. But that was the voice of my mind, and its opponent was instinct. It wasn't shouting or objecting, it just hid in the depths of the brain and nervous system, laughing quietly, as if saying, no matter how much you struggle, I'll still take what's mine. That's just evolution. And if one partner becomes unavailable, an animal goes searching for another. It was just more painful to feel like an animal blindly following its instincts. But in the end, instincts are what is responsible for our survival, the survival of the species as a whole. I stopped only when I reached my house. It was just how I'd left it, dark and lonely. Across from it was Himitsu's house, also with its lights off, but much more cozy than alive. I could always leave tomorrow morning too, if of course nobody would come to visit me tonight. Of course I couldn't know Himitsu would do next, or what Himitsu. Would she tell her father she met me at the station? But somehow I really wanted to believe she'd do the right thing this time. Searched the cupboards and found nothing to eat. The fridge had stood empty for a while. I was hungry, but not hungry enough to go to a 24/7 convenience store. But on the upper shelf, behind some empty tin cans, which used to hold either sugar or sugar, I found an open bottle of vodka. A Russian vodka with a Russian text on the label. Apparently it had been there for a few years, but it was alcohol. It's not like time would do it any harm. Held the bottle in my hands, carefully wiped the thick layer of dust off it, took out a glass and poured some vodka into it. The burning wave ran from my throat down to my stomach. It warmed me up and I immediately felt better. Of course, as always, alcohol couldn't solve my problems, but to a degree it did allow me to see life with fresh eyes, to notice not only the sharp edges and spikes but the positives too. This really lacked support. A kind word and simple human touch. Perhaps Himitsu could have provided all that, but at that moment, agreeing to her offer had seemed the worst kind of escapism possible. Didn't know how to bring Kagome back, hadn't managed to leave Tokyo, and I was just sitting in my kitchen drinking vodka, waiting for God knows what. There's probably a solution to every problem, or rather, eventually there's no one left who the problem matters to, and so it resolves itself. If Kagome could get her life in order without me, she'd really remember the pathetic loser she had to live with for a month in a tiny mining village. As for me, who cared how I felt? At this instant, I desperately wanted to find a higher meaning to life, to grasp the motives of Providence and the will of God. The more that I thought about it, the more I realized the pointlessness of existence. In life, everything happens the way it does due to the combination of an infinite number of variables. And it was extremely difficult to accept the pointlessness and I couldn't blame my parents for dying. Couldn't blame Catherine for leaving me a year and a half ago. Couldn't blame Kobayashi Jun for putting his granddaughters and his business's well-being above the people's lives. And I couldn't blame Kagome for how she treated me in the end. Damn it, I couldn't even really blame myself because I simply didn't know what I could have done differently. How do you make everyone happy on their own without inflicting suffering on other people? You don't. I'd never been a hypocrite and wasn't even trying to set my door in both worlds, unlike many of Kyosuke's manga protagonists. I knew that my relationship with Kagome would make Himitsu unhappy. I also knew that she'd been unhappy about my relationship with Catherine, but in the end, she had a father and a grandmother. She wasn't hunted by Kobayashi Corporation and the KGB. Felt sorry for Catherine too, but that pity was constantly mixed with the bitterness of resentment. By now, I'd realized clearly that we couldn't be together, for numerous reasons. But that understanding and the loss of hope it brought cut painfully into my heart, constantly reopening that same old yet not completely healed wound. As for Kagome, poured myself another glass and immediately noticed how beautifully the dim light from the lamp reflected on the surface of the liquid, like clear like a little angel's tear. After all, he'd always been great at making two things, vodka and tanks. Laughed loudly and immediately looked around cautiously as if someone was watching me. Why not, though? Maybe somewhere deep inside I was even expecting yet another visit from Irina, expecting her to help, offer a solution, or that Kagome would come back, apologize, and say everything that was going to be alright. Every gulp of vodka, those foolish dreams seemed more and more realistic, as my colossus with feet of clay was being reinforced with support beams. Each sip brought me closer to a bright future. Looking at the empty bottle with terror, having convinced myself that my only salvation was in it. If the vodka would run out, the bright world my drunk mind had created would collapse immediately. And the most scary part was that I was completely unprepared to face reality, which I'd be alone and of no use to anyone. But naturally, I eventually ran out of vodka, and with it ended my dream of happiness. My house had become truly cold, neither the energy nor desire to turn on the heating. Oi, 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 oi. Alright, give me a second again, guys. Okay, all's good. Getting there. I reached my bed, okay? I got to my bed. Loading. 2nd of November. Can we get to November 11th? My birthday? I woke up in that terrible state when you feel fine only so long you're lying horizontal. The moment you try to get up before even thinking of anything more complex, you've overcome with dizziness. The only good thing was that I hadn't drunk enough for a real hangover, so my condition would improve after a couple hours. And another one, my thoughts from a previous evening didn't return right away. The empty bottle of vodka stood on the table in the kitchen. I poured some water into a glass, drank it in one go, and winced at how cold it was. No plans neither for today nor at all. Running away from Tokyo and never looking back. Now it seemed like I was always have the time for that. The hangover numbed all of my emotions, including anxiety, which itself was strange. I fidgeted with the empty bottle, trying to figure out whether I should go to a store for another. Who the hell is it? The phone. Even if it was Ellie, Kyosuke, or Irina, all that seemed to be completely irrelevant. What if it was Kagome? Hello? Must have gotten the wrong number. Heard Catherine's voice on the other end. No, you haven't. What did she want from me? What did she want from me at this exact moment? Are you okay? Never better. What do you want? Let's talk another time. No, wait, sorry. Gave myself a couple good slaps in the face to come to my senses. Just in a bad mood this morning. Didn't sleep well and all that. Doesn't seem like it. Swear in my heart. Are you sure I'm not distracting you from something important? I can almost hear her smirk. What's so important is that I could be doing on, what day is it? You know me. I used to think I did. And now? Catherine just sighed and didn't reply. I didn't expect a call from you, especially after everything that happened. What happened with you? She asked nonchalantly. With me? And then did I realize that Catherine didn't know what had been going on in my life for the last few months. So much that I couldn't possibly summarize it in just a few words. Is that so? She replied with a somewhat forced indifference. Well, so, what did you want? Tried to hide my irritation. It's that we haven't talked in a while, and you haven't been to school for a while. Haven't been to school for a while? I grinned. Don't you know what kind of rumors have been circulated there about me and Iwamura? I do. She replied imperturbably. Well, so? Silence. Let to think you don't believe all that. Do you want to talk about this? With who? A psychologist? Thanks, but no thanks. With me. Ah, with you. Just like that? Just a second ago, I could think about how my life had gone so wrong. What exactly do you want me to talk about? I'm not forcing you, she replied briefly. No, of course. Let's meet up. In the city center in 2 hours, and don't be late. Affirmative. I hung up and sunk heavily to the floor. What if my life was going to take an unimaginable turn and I would lose Kagome just to get Catherine back? Maybe I'd fly her with her to the US where the corporation could never find us. Was I seriously considering the possibility? Especially after thinking yesterday nothing could have worked out between me and Catherine? It was somehow too quiet at home and also outside, just sitting in the hall and staring at the wall across from me, occasionally glancing at the clock. Didn't want to go to the meeting earlier than Catherine than just stand and wait there like an idiot. Once I'd show her that I wasn't the one who needed it most. Heard the sound of a car engine nearby. Looked out the window. It was Himitsu's father, Ryunosuke-san. Fortunately, he couldn't see me. I barely remembered Himitsu's mother, but it always surprised me how they never ever managed to get together. How to describe Ryunosuke-san it was? Typical Japanese man? Maybe even a bit too typical if you ask me. Respected governor employee and an almost exemplary head of the family. It was a wonder that Himitsu hadn't grown up to some kind of Yamato Natsuko under his care. Cool. Well, now it was time. I stood up with some effort, put my shoes, and walked outside. The cold November sun was unbearably blinding to my eyes, and my head, although the headache had passed, seemed to be swelling from the inside. God, when would I feel normal again? God, forgive me. Alright, sorry, I just want to check some things. Yeah, it's long. And I'm having it's a long time, okay? Human being. Of course, that wasn't the case. Maybe my face was a little swollen, but I didn't reek of alcohol, and I didn't wobble as I walked. No matter how hard I tried to get there and right on time, the clock on the office building told me I was 20 minutes early. City Center, Monday. Expected that there would be a lot of people, but not this many. Hi! Turned around and saw Catherine. You're early. So are you. But it's normal for me. So what did you want to talk about? She looked like she'd been dragged along on a boring field trip. Both the meeting and her morning call seemed strange to me, though acting weirdly was normal for her. I'm leaving soon. Leaving? Yes, back to the US. What about Michael? What about him? Well, I heard you two went on a date. She fixed her hair with a light gesture and turned away as if looking for something other on the other side of the street. This whole conversation seemed like a forced formality. A hangover and other serious personal, criminal, and existential difficulties prevented me from understanding what I was supposed to be feeling and doing at this moment. You've come to say goodbye? Something like that. Wouldn't you even ask me how I've been all this time? Where I was and what happened? I laughed sincerely. You know, the fact that I was home when you called was itself incredibly lucky, because I was also going to leave Tokyo indefinitely. Oh, is that so? Yes, it is. With that girl, Iwamura? Yes, with her. I blurted out, but immediately caught myself. I was. Well, good luck to you two then. Is that all? What else is there to say? Catherine finally looked at me. Her face was still like a wax mask. I could see poorly hidden sorrow in her eyes. But didn't know how to react. I didn't know whether I even wanted to say anything. That's what you decided. Yes, good luck to you. Maybe we'll see each other again someday. Bye. Pushed out a farewell, then stood there for a while watching her leave. Bye. Life, you might say, is like a chain. It spins and spins and spins, occasionally losing its links. Sometimes you notice it if the links are important to you, and sometimes you just realize at one moment that the chain has become shorter than before. Clearly hear a rattling clang and crunch. After Catherine left, I could see the sparks all around me and the smell of burnt metal, but the chain continued its merciless rotation, just now a little shorter. But coincidences are indeed absolutely indifferent. They can be good or evil to whoever they come upon. I was about to leave when I noticed a black foreign car right at the entrance of the Kobayashi Corporation building, as if there was anything unusual about it. Just have to see what bigwig it was this time. First, a few bodyguards in dark suits exited the car, carefully and meticulously examined their surroundings, and one of them opened the door and... I saw Kagome! From this point, from this far away, it was hard to see the expression on her face, but that wasn't necessary anyway. The impulse worked ahead of thoughts. There's a theory that consciousness is just an intricate attempt at the primary brain. Like, what is this? Why? Who cares about this? There's a theory. How about run to her? Kagome! I shouted while running, but Tokyo's business district was too loud on a Monday morning, and my voice was lost in the sound of car horns and people talking. Kagome! I gasped. It wasn't that easy to cross the road, and the nearest pedestrian crossing was 100 meters away. And meanwhile, the guards had brought Kagome into the building, ran straight ahead and was almost run over by a car. Once, twice. Nobody wanted to give way to a kid trying to cross the road without any regards for traffic laws. But finally, having slid over the hood of the car that slowed down to me, I ran into the corporation's offices. Kagome! Much quieter here compared to the outside, and Kagome and her guards had already reached the turnstiles. Kagome, wait! Finally she heard me and turned around. There was so much sadness, pain, and pleading in her eyes, and I immediately forgot all the theories I'd come up with and not so long ago. No, she couldn't have willingly abandoned me and just forgotten everything that had happened between us. I didn't know what secrets of events had brought us to this point in time and space, but her eyes told me everything. Separated not only by a few dozen meters, but she may as well have been on the other side of the planet. Nico! Kagome tried to shout, but one of the guards grabbed her roughly and all but threw her onto the turnstile. Kagome! When I ran to the turnstiles, it was too late. Kagome had been carried away, and the only person left to welcome me was a goon twice my size. It's pointless to argue with people like that or try to prove anything to them. I was feverishly looking around, seeing support. A few girls hanging at the reception desk, not busy with anything, looked at me in surprise. A few visitors were exchanging confused looks. Tell your boss this isn't over yet. I growled and ran for the exit. This isn't over yet, mother fudger. Give me a second again, guys. Okay. We are nearing the end here soon. Capture me. I had to collect my thoughts and come up with a plan. I was at least confident that I had a chance. Kagome had given it to me yourself. But my heart was beating like crazy. Drops of sweat were running down my face, and everything floated before my eyes. I wasn't in the best condition to think up a plan to assault the headquarters of the biggest corporation in Japan. I sank heavily into the bench and tried to catch my breath. They must be expecting me there. Now, that's for sure. Thanks to Catherine, I suddenly thought. Indeed, if it hadn't been for her, I would have been far away from Tokyo, carried away by a train, menacingly staring at the countryside. But not much has changed, really. All I learned was that Kagome was effectively being held hostage by Kobayashi-jun. He clearly knew best what was good for his granddaughters. How was I, a simple high schooler who only yesterday been drowning in vodka and depression, supposed to stand up for the might of Kobayashi Corporation? Nevertheless, deep down inside, a warm, pleasant feeling had already appeared, began to take root into my soul, and spread further through my body with every passing second. Its source was Kagome's face, with a plea for me written on it, her eyes wet with tears that were louder than any words. And even if I only won a million shot to rescue her, that was enough. But in addition to my desperate desire, I also needed a plan. Suddenly, I started remembering scenes from all the American movies I'd watched in my life. Blow up the Kobayashi corporate building? If I had any explosives, I would have done it. Although, wait, Kagome was in there. In any case, I had to somehow get past the security guards. I could not blow up the building, I could at least threaten to. Then in all panic, maybe I'd managed to find her. I located the payphone, but I couldn't summon the courage to grab the receiver and dial the number. Hands were shaking, and it felt as if someone had put my head in a vice that was crushing it. Though I soon realized I didn't even know the number. Operator. Of course, getting the number of Kobayashi Corporation ended up being much easier than looking for some Akira Shinji guy who owned a restaurant. Memorized the number given to me by the girl with a pleasant voice and hung up, and I froze. It was clear what I had to say, but how? I couldn't just blurt out that there was a bomb planting at the building. Who was I, and why would they believe me? If that worked, every idiot would call them a dozen times a day. In the end, it would be a prank call. The police would probably get involved too, although they probably had more than enough questions for me as is. I caught my breath and finally grabbed the receiver, dialed the number, covering the receiver with my hand to distort my voice at least a little. Hello, this is Kobayashi Corporation. The girl just as nice as the last said to the other end, "In your main office. I mean, in the building with your main office." In my mind, I was already beating myself up. "Explosion is in an hour. I advise you to evacuate everybody." What kind of terrorist would advise an evacuation of his potential victims? I couldn't handle the shame, and I was about to hang up. The girl on the other hand replied in a cold, uncompromising voice, "Is this some kind of joke? Who are you? Identify yourself." It was when I realized that my plan had failed. Indeed, why would they believe every idiot who decided to prank them? After all, we were in Japan, out in all countries. Maybe once the cyberpunk dystopia finally rolled over, they take this sort of threat more seriously. But now, blowing up a building in the center of Tokyo, few people were capable of that. And the ones who could definitely wouldn't warn anyone in advance. Walked out of the telephone box and looked around. The business district kept living its own busy life. The secretary, or whoever she was, hadn't taken me seriously, but didn't have to worry about the police. Powerless, I sank to the nearest bench and put my head in my hands. When you face failure, disaster, your entire world comes apart at the seams. Your very perception of reality becomes distorted. There's no black and white anymore. There's only black, and all the good things that ever were in your life look like a discolored children's picture book, and that at its best. In the first place, to be frank, I was in deep wait for someone to knock from the bottom. Something unexpected happened. Could you tell me where the offices of Kagome Corporation are?" I raised my head. A young man wearing a uniform and a baseball kit with the logo for a logistics company stood in front of me. He had a strong Chinese accent, but the most surprising thing was that he was asking for directions while standing across from Kobayashi Corporation's offices. That's when I got an idea. Just as wild as the bomb call, perhaps even slightly more realistic. Want to make a bit of extra cash? What do I have to do? The Chinese guy didn't even hesitate for the sake of his decency. His eyes immediately lit up. "What do you deliver?" Paper clips, that kind of stuff. There's my car." He gestured toward the sidewalk where a little truck was parked. "I'll give you." Took out a wallet and counted the money. Moriki-san sure hadn't held back. "This much if you lend me your jacket, your hat, and a couple of boxes of the stuff you're delivering." "What do you need it for?" And we finally showed suspicion. "Doesn't matter." We had a wallet full of cash in front of him. The guy's internal conflict ended fairly swiftly. "Spare uniforms in the car." His lips stretched into an idiotic smile. "Great, that's even better. Then I'll give you half now and half in the elevator once we're inside." "Deal." Yay. The jacket was too small for me as expected, but I still managed to fit into it somehow, although it must have looked weird. Although the two huge but surprisingly light boxes allowed me to hide well from inquiring glances. When we entered the corporation's building, I asked the Chinese guy, "You know what you're doing, right? Just follow me." He walked to the reception. I gave the girl there a clipboard with some papers and said something. Wasn't listening to him, but instead carefully looked over the boxes, watching for those guards in dark suits, or, God forbid it, Kagemaru. But this time I seemed to be in luck. None of the people on the first floor of the Kobayashi Corporation building were paying any attention to me. Finally, the guy was done with the paperwork and carefully poked me in the back. "Follow me, but don't run." When we approached the turnstiles, the guy nodded to the man standing next to the farthest of them, and he let us pass without saying a word. Was I already halfway there? I was rejoicing internally and had to struggle to keep my face straight. When we entered the building, we agreed that I go up as high as possible in the elevator and then go our separate ways. The wait for the elevator to arrive was painfully long. Maybe the seconds seemed like hours, just to me. I could feel my hair getting sweaty under the baseball cap. The tight jacket restricted my movements, and the boxes that had seemed like light a minute ago weighed my arms down. "Not planning anything bad, are you?" Since when he had started to using casual Japanese. "No, actually, you might instead call what I'm doing noble." Billy managed to reply, "People doing something noble don't sneak around. Want the rest of the money or not?" I grew angry. Fine, I'm silent." His expression grew stark and he lowered his head. Naturally, I hadn't planned anything beyond this. I could run into Kagemaru at Kobayashi Jun's office. The old man himself could be somewhere else. There were millions of other possible outcomes, and only one of them were in my favor. That was if he even decided to hear me out. And if I wouldn't be that lucky, in the best case, they'd just kick me out again, and I'd end up not just alone with my money in some Chinese guy's pockets. Gave the guy a hateful glance, but really, what had he done wrong? Just as much a foreigner in Japan as I was. In many senses, he probably had it harder than I. "Trust me, I'm not going to do anything bad," slowly said in a rush of goodwill. "Need to get somewhere and talk to someone. Just hope you'll listen to me and understand. My job is to accompany you to whatever floor you want to go. That's all. After that, we're strangers." Chinese guy replied in an unexpectedly rough tone. "True, you're right. Been too quick to see him as an ally. Like most people, he was only taking the risk for money, not out of love for those around him. Look who's talking, though." Finally, the elevator arrived. We let the people out and entered. Of course, in such a large building, we couldn't be its only passengers. Took a second, picked the floor. Not too high, but not too low either. Let it be the 18th, I poked the buttons randomly. The elevator stopped at almost every floor, letting passengers in and out like a blue whale flittering water to extract plankton. Chinese guy stood still without saying a word, looked straight ahead. On the other hand, was shifting from one foot to another. 5th floor. Last time I'd been there, the amount of time was enough for us to get to the penthouse. 6. Blood pulsed in my temples, the box was about to fall out of my hands. Finally, got tired of it and pushed the boxes to the guy. Here, take it, this is yours anyway. Accepted the load without any objections. 12th floor. There were fewer and fewer people in the cabin. Took off the jacket and the hat and dropped them on top of the boxes. Alright, good enough, thank you. Then all but kicked him out of the elevator. Penthouse button stood out, surrounded by a great many nondescript buttons with numbers. Summoned my courage and pressed it, but nothing happened. Tried again, but to no avail. God damn it. Suffered so much and almost reached the end, only to fail because the flippin' elevator was malfunctioning. Noticed a little keyhole next to the button. How come I didn't notice it before? Taking the elevator with Kagome, last time I had things on my mind other than studying the details. On the 16th floor, a middle-aged European-looking man entered the elevator together with a Japanese guy, partly a corporation employee carrying a bag on the other side of his jacket. Which floor, sir? Yes, not politely as possible. Well, didn't look like one of Kobayashi-jun's typical visitors. Was it better off ignoring him and getting off the elevator and finding another way up to the penthouse? No, that was too dangerous. Enthusiastic guy would definitely report a suspicious individual. Born Japanese. The man suddenly said in English. Obviously. I replied surprised. Forgive my rudeness. He smiled politely. You weren't rude at all. What floor do you need to get to, young man? Take the opportunity. The penthouse. The penthouse is a bit... The white-collar guy immediately got nervous. You have a meeting with Mr. Kobayashi? Yes. I didn't really understand what was going on and what that strange man wanted from me. I decided to speak honestly, but as little as possible. What a coincidence. So do I. Shall we go together? By the way, my name is Mikhail. Nick. I replied, still in English. It was hard to tell if he was Russian or from another Eastern European country. At the moment I didn't much care, so I deliberately avoided a warm welcome with one of my countrymen. But sir, the Japanese employee said timidly, see, Nick also needs to get into Mr. Kobayashi's office. Let's not hold the elevator. Japanese guy hesitated, sighed deeply, took out a key, carefully turned it into the keyhole, and stepped aside. Please! Mikhail confidently pressed the penthouse button. The elevator's ascent was again accompanied by the awful tune I hadn't paid any attention to when I entered with the Chinese guy. The closer we got to the second floor I needed, the more uncomfortable I felt. There was enough air in the cabin and the pressure was rising, even though we were supposed to be going higher above the ground. What business do you have here, Nick, if I may ask? And what business? What? What do you want to discuss with Mr. Kobayashi? Well, a personal matter. We finally started to going up to the penthouse. My newborn confidence faded away like a fog above Kobayashi's skyscraper after a rain. Personal question, huh? He squinted for a moment, losing his friendly look, but then smiled again. I understand. Nothing lasts forever. Even though some things seem to last for an eternity, one instant, no matter how long it drags on, inevitably gives way to another. Even stars. And the galactic time scale died then to be reborn into a new form. Okay, we're in the penthouse. Freaking finally. My God. Alright, give me a hot second. Unpleasant sound. Mikhail and the employee accompanied him walked out when I remained in place. Are you coming? Oh yeah, sure. I wouldn't have known what to tell Kobayashi-jun, even if he had been alone, and had even less of an idea about what to do now. The old man was sitting at his desk when his back turned to us. After a couple of seconds, he turned around and prepared to greet his guest cordially. Ah, welcome. How was your flight, mister? He said in broken English, and then noticed me. Nikolai. His mood immediately soared. Or something. What are you doing here? We need to talk. Managed to force out. Mikhail turned around and looked at me with surprise. Don't you see that this isn't the best moment? I have a meeting. There won't be another time. I blurted out and grit my teeth. I don't want to interfere. I have plenty of time, and if this is something urgent... Yes, sorry, it really is urgent. Finally pulled myself together. Nikolai. The old man raised his voice, but his Japanese manners wouldn't let him start an argument in front of his guest. He was clearly troubled and didn't know what to do. Calling security and kicking me out would have been appropriate had I shown and ended up in his office alone. Reputation is everything for the Japanese, so he couldn't do so in front of Mikhail. That was obvious. Had I finally come into some luck? Although I couldn't start talking about Kagome while Mikhail was here. Even if I were to put aside my manners, Kobayashi-jun wouldn't react. Even worse if we were alone. Mikhail, sorry, I need to talk with Kobayashi-sama. I said in Russian. I understand. He replied briefly without an accent, but that in itself didn't prove anything. Next second, he bowed to Kobayashi-Jun and headed for the elevator. Wait. CEO tried to stop him. Nice to see that even this all-powerful old man could find himself in a situation where he was powerless. Stretch. Happy now, Nikolai? Once the doors of the elevator closed, he nodded at the chair in front of his desk. I walked over and sat down, inwardly feeling something akin to triumph. Kobayashi-sama, first I want to ask you, Kagome, are you forcing her to stay here? Nikolai, there are some aspects of our culture you fundamentally misunderstand. She's still part of the family. I can't just force her to be here. He frowned, locking his fingers together and leaned forward. Doesn't matter how you phrase it, the point remains the same. I know that Kagome decided to turn to you because we simply had no other choice. If she'd wanted to, she would have brought you along. She couldn't. I raised my voice, but immediately caught myself and shrunk back. And why is that? Why? Well, because, in reality, I didn't know the answer to that question. Yes, Kagome could have at least discussed her decision with me, because she's your family, just like you said. And who am I? Especially after Ellie's kidnapping. At best, I'm just an annoying pest at worst. I'm glad you can be so soberly judge your own capabilities. He suddenly smiled. I just don't understand one thing. Earlier, why couldn't you... Hesitated for a moment, picking the right words. Her mother, and then her father. Kagome told me everything. Is that really how a family acts? Wasn't in any position to criticize him, but it stubbornly seemed to me that Kobayashi-Jun had paid more attention to how a person spoke, rather than in the actual meaning of her words. As soon as he was bored of our conversation, I'd be kicked out of here forever, and might never see Kagome again. And you, on the contrary, know all about the perfect family. He suddenly changed the subject. Me? What do I have to do with this? Your parents worked for Soviet intelligence from the very beginning, the whole time they'd spent in Japan. That's not true. Forced myself to object, although deep inside an understanding was growing that this person wouldn't throw around baseless accusations. Did I really know my parents that little? In any case, what does that have to do with Kagome? You think I'd allow my granddaughter to be with a Soviet spy? A Soviet spy? I smirked powerlessly and flung my arms up in the air. Kobayashi-sama, what are you talking about? I'm just a high schooler, and I'm not even among the best. Sins of the father, he said admonishingly. Would you want your grandchild to answer for your sins? Partly I'd hit the target, for a second hint of annoyance flickered across his face. Haven't always been honest as either, even with yourself. Circumstances forced you to pretend you didn't have a daughter, and then a granddaughter, that being your profitable marriage. How do you know that? His cheekbones bulged on his face. Kobayashi-Jun looked like he was about to lose it. But a near century of life experience wouldn't allow the old man to lose face in front of a child. Managed to restrain himself, leaned back and smiled. I didn't think Kagome knew about it, but she does. This changes nothing. Those are matters of days long gone. You and I are discussing much more pressing questions. What do you want, Nikolai? What do I want? Repeated as there was a key to Wonderland in the answer to that question. Want you to let us live like we used to. Kagome hadn't done anything wrong. Well, apart from kidnapping Ellie, of course. People make mistakes. Teenagers in that sense outmatch everybody else. But everything's fine now. Fine? How exactly do you define fine? Kagome had managed to fool me up to a point, but no more. Yes, I'll be frank, I didn't realize that she harbored such a deep grudge against me. And knowing all that, you still want to? He raised his hand and stopped me. But she and I had a thorough conversation and settled everything. So that's what you call it now. Kagome's scared face and the way she'd been carried over the turnstile appeared before my eyes, although the old man must have had a different view on the situation. Nikolai, remember your place. Was in fact crossing the line. Kobayashi-Jun had decided to talk to me as if I were his equal for a moment, and I began to believe there was a chance. But it was just a game of cat and mouse. The cat releases the mouse and let it run away for a little, only to catch it again between its claws. Kobayashi-sama, there is nothing I can do to change your decision. I'm surprised I'm even sitting here and talking with you in the first place. But if you've decided to hear me out, I really think this cruel old man's heart would suddenly soften, touched by my fiery speech, and give his blessing to me and Kagome. That sort of thing only happened in Kyosuke's manga. Don't be mistaken, Nikolai. Your parents were spies, but I'm simply interested in the limits of audacity the KGB is prepared to go to. Really think I came here as a Soviet spy or a Soviet citizen? Unable to hold back anymore, I shouted and jumped off the chair, and a muscle twitched on Kobayashi-Jun's face. I've come here for the girl I love, because I believe that we can still be together, and after everything that's happened, well, it happened because it did. But it's not the end, and I know that Kagome loves me too. The fact that you happen to be your grandfather is no less of an accident than we have. Then we ended up in the same class. You've never been involved in her life. If her mother hadn't told her about you, that's how it would have stayed. Why do you need Kagome? Yes, I understand that we kidnapped Ellie, but that's in the past. Ellie yourself had forgiven us, I'm sure of it. And why can't you just let us live a peaceful life? Kobayashi Jun listened to my hysterical outburst quietly, and when I was finally done, nodded coldly. If you asked her what she wants, didn't know what to say to that. Deep inside there was a hope that my feelings were mutual, but I couldn't be absolutely sure. You're right, Nikolai. I don't need to listen to all this, and I should have called security long ago. But somehow, I like you. You remind me of myself in my younger years. We're ready to turn a blind eye to that little incident with Elizabeth if you leave the country immediately. Don't you understand yet that I won't go anywhere without Kagome? I whispered in desperation, but the old man somehow managed to hear me. Fine, let's ask Kagome yourself then. He grabbed the receiver of one of the phones sitting on the table and said briefly, Bring Kagome, Iwamura-san in. I knew that he was playing in the open and was fully confident in his cards. I also knew what Kagome would say, and yet morally I wasn't all prepared. Long minutes passed by in silence. Kobayashi Jun was studying some documents while I sat in the chair, looking out the window at Tokyo spread out at the foot of the corporation's building like Gorgoroth at the foot of Mount Doom. Finally, Kagome seemed to appear out of nowhere in the office. Okay, gotta catch my breath again. 'Cause holy crap, that's a lot of dialogue. Whew. I hadn't heard from her footsteps nor a knock on the door, not even a sound of an elevator going up. Did you call for me? I turned around and looked at Kagome as she was giving a respectable bow. Nico-san? For a moment, I could see admonishment on her face, but she immediately regained control of herself. Come closer. The old man drew himself away from the papers and made an inviting gesture, indicating that Kagome should come next to him. She passed by me, and I immediately felt the girl was shaking. Maybe not physically, but I could sense it mentally. Please tell Nikolai everything you told me before. Kagome started without even raising her head. Nico-san, it won't work out between us. You would be better off leaving Japan since you don't like this country. I don't understand its culture. I'm grateful for the time we spent together, but Grandfather Kobayashi has explained what is better for me. It's to be with him, father, and grandfather Moriyuki. Kagome knew immediately that she would never have said any of that of her own will. So this damned old man was threatening her family again, but that knowledge didn't change a thing. I was still powerless to do anything. What's the point of this charade? I asked Kobayashi Jun. Why bother calling her in to read your bullshit script? I really think I haven't gotten to know Kagome well enough to realize that's not how she really feels. Yet this move of his turned out to be quite effective. Even if Kagome's words didn't come from the heart, hearing something like that from a person you love was still hard. Nico-san. She weakly tried to object, only to let out a sob and fall silent. Yes, suppose that wasn't the best idea. The old man said, either seriously or simply mocking me. No, wait a minute. If I was put before the fact anyway, it would have been stupid not to make use of the situation. What are you planning to do next, then? Do you want her to renounce her family, her father, the memory of her mother who you abandoned? You understand nothing, Nikolai. For a moment, extreme frustration flashed across his face. I stole a glance at Kagome, but it was as if she hadn't heard my words about her mother. You don't have to be a genius to understand what your top priority is. If the circumstances were different, would Kagome be standing next to you right now? Nico-san. Kagome raised her eyes to me, pleading. Don't. You're only making it worse for everyone. Sorry for trying to. Stopped short, bit my lip, and looked out the window, past Kagome and her grandfather, as the skyscraper across from Kobayashi Corporation's headquarters. I wondered if there was another petulant old man sitting there ruining others' lives. Why are you even doing this? I addressed Kobayashi Jun once again. Let us go and you'll never hear from us again. Let you go? He smirked and caressed his beard. Nikolai, you're all grown up now and must understand what is and isn't acceptable in this country. But the accursed old man was right from any point of the view you consider adult. If he had been so desperate to hide the fact that he had an illegitimate daughter, then here's an idea. Kobayashi-sama started a devilish smile on my face. If you were so against people finding out you had children out of wedlock, why do you need Kagome? Her existence alone is proof. Are you so sure about that? He smirked once again. Well, really, what did I know about Japan's clan system? Daughter, granddaughter, was there any difference between them, or did sins of the father not automatically transfer to the next generation of the family? What arguments did I even have left? And you, what are you just standing there for? Say something, it's you we're talking about. Nico-san! Kagome still avoided looking at me. You know, I understand why you're doing this. I do, but this is just damn wrong. I don't need this kind of protection, believe me. I was ready to snap, furiously whipping my head from side to side, unable to fix my gaze on either Kobayashi-Jun or Kagome. Nikolai, your hysterics are inappropriate, the old man said calmly. And if that is all, go. He told Kagome, tilting his head slightly. The girl obediently followed his order. This was probably the first time I'd ever seen Kagome so helpless. Let me check something again. Don't mind me. Don't mind me. Alright, we're making some headway. Helpless. Even after her father had been kidnapped, even after the restaurant had burned down, even when we had to escape Tokyo, Kagome had always kept fighting. But now she looked like a sailor facing the 30-meter tall wave bearing down on his schooner. Defeat, desperation, fatalism. Could this be the fate she'd been talking about? Kagome had decided to sacrifice herself for the sake of her grandfather, father, and I could keep arguing with Kobayashi-Jun, could probably even jump over the desk and try to strangle him. But it would all end the same way, with my defeat. And most importantly, wouldn't it make us her sacrifice obsolete? Kagome would remain in his hands, but if I kept resisting, she knew that part of it was for nothing. Fine, I understand. I stood up without looking at Kobayashi-Jun and dragged myself to the elevator. I'm delighted that we managed to find a solution that satisfies everyone, Nikolai. I heard his mocking voice behind my back. Before I had to press the button, the doors opened themselves and Mikhail walked out of the cabin, accompanied by a few serious-looking men of European appearance clad in suits and a couple Japanese, clearly not corporation employees. Are you done already? He asked me in English in a much less friendly tone than before. Yes. Good. Then it's our turn. I felt it in my guts that this wasn't just a business meeting. The grim-looking group just needed something from the old man, which, well, he preferred not to meet them. Instead of obediently walking into the elevator and going down to the hall, I walked out of his office and tiptoes, held the door with my hands, and started to listen. Mr. Kobayashi, you know who we are. We're going to have a difficult conversation. What are you doing here? Somebody put his huge hand on my shoulder and roughly pulled me away from the door. Kagemaru stood before me. Nothing. I'm actually just leaving. He squinted, but still relaxed his hand and let me go. Go then. We're free! So, Kobayashi... Yep, another unfollow happened. A lot of scumbags these days. So Kobayashi-Jun had enough problems of his own. I went down to the first floor, walked out of the elevator, and sat down on the sofa opposite of the reception desk. And yet, these guys look dangerous. What could Kobayashi Corporation have done? In any case, the old man had more important matters to deal with than his newly founded granddaughter. But first I needed to speak with Kagome. Somehow it seemed to me that after the show organized by the old man in his office, she wouldn't be guarded so heavily. I went to the reception desk and asked them whether they saw a girl, described Kagome in the best of my ability. Luckily, they told me that a girl like that had just walked out of the building. Ran to the exit and then out of the building, crossed the road and saw Kagome sitting on a bench in the square. I finally caught up with you. I came closer and stood next to her. Nico-san. For a moment, she looked up at me with eyes full of sadness. I guess we have nothing to talk about anymore. That's not true. I know why and for who you're doing all this, but you don't have to sacrifice yourself and our love. Just saw a few serious-looking guys entering old man Kobayashi's office, and it didn't look like he was partially happy to see them. Does that tell you anything? No, should it? She responded weakly. Well, of course I don't really understand what's going on, but something is definitely going on. Think for yourself, your father's work, the project, the documents we saw, my parents. Kobayashi-Jun claimed they were Soviet spies, and he clearly believed what she said. To be honest, I'm not ready to claim the opposite right now, no matter how much I'd like to. Slowly but steadily, pieces of some sort of large puzzle had started to come together in my head, on a subconscious level for now. It was like I could feel the big picture, but the texture of the canvas, the roughness of its wooden frame, the unevenness of the oily paint, but I couldn't see yet what was on it. Kagome, I need to meet your father. You must have released him by now. Why? She asked me in a lifeless voice. Doesn't matter. I just need to. Trust me. If I'm wrong, if nothing works, I'll leave Japan without any objections, just like your new grandfather wants. Nico-san, I don't know. She looked even more helpless than in Kobayashi Jun's office. So has he been released? Yes. Can you call him? Yes. It seemed like she was giving me and our love one last chance. Then do it. Do it. I said goodbye to Kagome and told her I'd definitely find her when everything was over. Akira Shinji was waiting for me in the park, in the quiet place where Catherine and I used to spend time together. Here he is, the dad. I noticed an older man sitting on a bench, came closer and greeted him. Akira-san? Nikolai-kun. He stood up, giving me an appraising glance, but didn't reach out to shake my hand. Of course, that would have been normal if I'd been Japanese, but I wasn't, and Akira Shinji must have known my father. We finally meet. I've heard about you from my daughter, about everything you two have been through for me, and I'm grateful. Much to my surprise, he bowed briefly, then frowned again. However, I don't understand. What did you want to see me for? You're right, Kagome had gone through a lot for you, and she's in a difficult situation now. I gather you understand? Kobayashi Jun? Yes, it's mostly about him. I don't know whether it's about his newly found granddaughter feelings or something else, but Kagome has become just another employee in this corporation at best. And at worst? I sighed and shifted my gaze to the pond that now looked cold and lifeless. I understand. Akira-san lowered his head and avoided looking at me. I told her before, but what is there to do now? I have a solution. What kind? He looked at me confused. We're pretty high up in the project, right? Right. Kagome's father responded with some effort, like a person who'd been keeping a secret for many years, but was finally forced to share it with someone else. I was in Kobayashi Jun's office earlier, and he got a visit from some serious-looking people, Europeans. What? Akira-san straightened up, which even seemed to make him look younger. The thing is, my father was an engineer who escaped from the USSR. He also used to work on the project too. Yes, I knew him. Well, finally, a woman from the KGB has been following me for some time now. He opened his mouth, apparently about to say something, but in the end, couldn't seem to find the right words. You see, I couldn't piece together all the details before, see them at the full picture in my head. Yes, something's going on, something important and serious, but what do I have to do with it, and what can I offer? I'm sure that my parents' death wasn't an accident, and I can't forgive Kobayashi Jun for that, but right now we're talking about Kagome. I'm afraid to even imagine what you're doing for that project of yours, and it doesn't matter now. But you know, and that's what matters. And information is the most important resource in the world. Where are you going with this, Nikolai? Akira-san's expression was growing darker and darker as he gradually figured out what was on my mind. That woman from the KGB wants to obtain any information about Kobayashi Jun and Corporation, and meeting the head of the project that'd be an excellent bargaining chip. You understand that this is treason? He spelled it out first, slowly. Treason of what? Japan's national interest? And what you did back there? Didn't it go against basic human values? I took a risk. After all, Mikhail and Co. clearly had a reason to be interested in Kobayashi Corporation. And yet, Akira-san turned away, and it immediately became clear that it was hard for him to look me in the eye after everything I'd said. If old man Kobayashi knew, then you become a turncoat. He flinched and if someone had run an electric charge through his body. I understand what it sounds like, but just listen to me. My parents fled the USSR. Of course they had their reasons. Maybe in part they did for me. Think about Kagome. Is this the future you want for her? Kobayashi Jun has already shown he isn't going to do her any harm. He objected timidly. Maybe not physically, but what about Kagome's own dreams for her future? You weren't kidnapped for no reason. He was just using you to threaten her. It's a vicious equilibrium, a cruel system of checks and balances, to force one to be silent to the other and the other to obey. Of course you're right. Kagome is no stranger to him. He cares for her in his own way. If it had been anyone else but her, I'm sure you wouldn't have seen daylight again for the rest of your life. Was that a bit too much? What happened to me in the USSR? Akira-san asked all of a sudden. It seemed like he had thought about something like this before. To be honest, I don't know. I responded, trying to be as open and sincere as possible. But I think valuable people are valuable everywhere. At least that's what the major from the KGB told me. And that was indeed true. We remained quiet for a while. Finally, Akira-san said, Nikolai-kun, I'm not going to lie to you. I'd already been thinking that we wouldn't really have a life under the boot of Kobayashi Corporation. I've also thought about my daughter's future. But what you're suggesting, life isn't linear. Who knows what will happen tomorrow? Tried to force a smile, but made a shooter job of it. Maybe you'll meet again soon, in a few years. It's you two who are just beginning their lives. He smiled in turn, but still better than me. At least talk to her. I'm confident nobody will try to kidnap you in the center of Tokyo in the middle of the day. Akira-san thought hard about it. Obviously, it wasn't a very fair play. Was forcing Kagome's father to make a sacrifice for his daughter. Basically was putting him in a position where he simply couldn't refuse. But the sacrifice itself wasn't terrible. I didn't know what motherland and patriotism meant to Akira Shinji, but clearly they were more important to him than to me. A young man who hadn't really lived in the USSR, and according to Kagome, hadn't really assimilated into Japan either. And what if he didn't finish the sentence and just stared at me with suffering in his eyes, as if expecting something? It's just a talk. I tried to smile as sincerely as possible, and immediately realized that I was acting almost like Irina, trying to persuade someone to cooperate with the KGB. But at this point, I really had no choice. Fine. He finally agreed. Wait here, I'll be just a moment. Alright. Give me a second again. Okay, we're around, we're getting close. Nearest telephone box, telephone number, Irina, that you'd be waiting for them. Of course, they told me that there wasn't and had never been anyone with that name at the embassy, but I was sure the KGB took messages of this sort seriously. And so they did, because Irina appeared in the park just 40 minutes later. Akira-san, this is Irina. While I've been waiting for her, I started to feel confident that everything was going to go smoothly. When the KGB major finally appeared, I suddenly got scared. Akira-san, pleasure to meet you. She bowed deeply, but Kagome's father didn't react like a polite Japanese man ought to. He tilted his head squeamishly. Nikolai, we need to talk in private. What? But I quickly realized it was foolish to argue with her. For something like that, I couldn't even pretend to be a middleman. I was at best a delivery guy who was a generous client and might give a tip, although that wasn't custom in Japan. I talked for a while and kept their voices down, tried to listen in, but I couldn't hear a word. Irina recrossed her legs a couple times, but generally remained still. Kira-san, on the other hand, somehow bent over unnaturally and mostly studied the park's flora. Finally, Irina cast a glance in my direction, smiled, and called me over with a gesture. I walked to her, and stood next to them. Thank you, Nikolai, for organizing this meeting. Her smile had become even cuter, but I already knew that there was nothing pleasant behind it. I don't know what you've agreed upon, but I guess I'm better off that way. But there's also something I want out of this. I tried to speak confidently, but my voice kept breaking, like I was a vessel begging to a sovereign. Yes, of course. She replied absent-mindedly, took a pack of cigarettes out of her bag, opened it, but apparently changed her mind, put it back. Akira-san will take care of everything, right, Akira-san? Kagome's father nodded quickly without looking me in the eyes. Take care of what, if I may ask? I'll call Kobayashi-jun and handle what we've talked about. I knew you'd make the right decision. I'm so grateful to you. I'm indebted to you for life. But nothing I could say would sweeten the pill I practically shoved down his throat. Maybe I'd done the right thing, what I had to do. But there were situations where both parties are right in and of themselves, not in regards to each other. Two minuses make a plus. The correct action is born out of something that hurts both parties. I just lowered my head and mumbled, "Thank you." I turned around and slowly walked toward the exit of the park. Take care of my daughter. Take care of Kagome. I heard him call after me. I stopped for a moment, but immediately continued my mournful walk, saying goodbye to that brave man forever. Twilight was slowly descending upon the square in front of Kobayashi Corporation's building. I was sitting on a bench for no real reason, waiting for God knows what. It was all over. The KGB knew what they were doing, and Akira-san would keep his word. So there was nowhere to hurry anymore. Kagome was safe. Except how was I going to explain to her what had happened? How could I explain to her that she would probably never see her father again? Nico-san? I raised my hand and saw Kagome, who was slowly approaching the bench. Hi, I was waiting for you. Waiting for me. Here? She said with a surprise and stopped a few steps away from me. Yeah, hope that after everything had happened you'd get some freedom of movement. She said nothing, only gave me a strange look as if I'd counted her change at the supermarket wrong. Have handled everything. was hard to look her in the eyes. Handled what? I've solved the problem. What problem, Nico-san? Kagome started to get annoyed. You know what problem. It's just hard for me to say it out loud. So you're going to say nothing? No, of course I won't. It's just... I sighed, stood up, and walked closer to her. Everything's going to be alright now. We can be together again. You met with my father. She said monotonously, as if stating the fact. Yes, and he wanted the ground to open and swallow me just to avoid this conversation. He did what he had to do. We had no other choice. Gomi's facial expression changed from indifferent to surprised and then scared. Dad, what happened to him? Do you remember I told you about that woman from the KGB? I began to babble, stumbling over my words. This afternoon I accidentally ran into some important-looking people in Kobayashi Jun's office and figured out that the old man had his hands full with other problems. The project your father used to work on and mine too. This wasn't a coincidence. Where's Dad? She asked me sternly. Well, I don't know where he is right now, but I think he'll be in the USSR soon. What? Nico-san? I was prepared for her to try and hit me, but Kagome started crying, threw herself into my arms. Aww. That is what we call sweet. How could you do this, Nico-san? She wept. It was his decision. He simply had no other choice. As long as he stayed in Japan, your father would have to remain hostage to the corporation, and you too. But the KGB, do you think Kobayashi Corporation is any better? After all, they were the ones who killed my parents. Although we weren't talking about me. Sorry, I don't know what else to say. It seemed that on some subconscious level, Kagome had been prepared for this. Of course, she couldn't have guessed that I'd send her father to meet Irina. But what I told her I wanted to meet him, it wasn't difficult to figure out that the outcomes would be bad for all of us. Bad, but necessary. Kagome was quietly crying into my chest. I thought you'd just ask him for some documents. In a situation like this, the best document there can be a living person. What will happen to him there? Irina told me many times that people like him are of enormous value to them. After all, when we first arrived in Japan, we were met appropriately. But I knew she was referring to the words about the evil empire spoken by a mediocre actor who achieved more success in politics than on the screen. And though I'd only recently been pondering the concept of patriotism in my mind, it still rubbed me the wrong way. If you think we have bears walking the streets with machine guns in their paws, no, that's not what I mean. She interrupted me with a sniffle. Just that your country is so far away. It's cold there, and will we ever see each other again? You will. I'm sure of it. What will happen to us? I could not believe that Kagome wasn't angry at me, or at least she wasn't showing it. Perhaps she just had to deal with me so much lately, and the poor girl had burnt out and threw herself at the mercy of the closest person left in her life. Except for Moriyuki-san, but the old man would barely be able to help. Akira-san and the arena are supposed to resolve the Kobayashi Jun problem. That was the condition. And yes, your father, he already thought he would have to leave Japan one way or another. Nico-san, you shouldn't justify your actions. Am I justifying anything? I started arguing for some reason. I knew that you did what you believed was right, and my dad also did the right thing in a way. It could have ended much worse for all of us, and I'm thankful that you're with me now. She hugged me tighter, and I felt a tear run down my cheek. This is horrible. It shouldn't be like this. The whole world. I guess Kagome had a difficult personality. No, it definitely wasn't an easy one. But it's just the right moment. She understood everything as clearly as possible, and supported me. I guess I also had reasons to be angry for abandoning me then. But this sequence of mistakes, wrongdoings, and deception and pain we inflicted on each other brought us to this square under the rays of the beautiful setting sun. And this square with only the two of us, because this ever-present scurrying gray suits had all disappeared somewhere. So had the ugly Kobayashi Corporation building and all the other skyscrapers in Tokyo's Central Business District, to the capital of Japan itself. There we were outside of space and time, drowning in each other's arms, hoping that this moment would last forever. Just like two cripples, blinded and with tied legs. We were crawling to the finish line hand in hand, because, and not in spite of, I knew I'd made a lot of mistakes. I knew that Kagome had too. Kobayashi Jun and his entire damn corporation had made even more. I didn't know what was going to happen to him now, but Akira Shinji had particularly paid for his mistakes. I didn't know that what Akira Shinji's fault was. There was probably something too. but I knew one thing: Kagome and I had suffered a lot to have this moment, deserved to be here now to be together. The sun had almost disappeared behind one of the office buildings, marking the end of the day. Nico-san! What? Shall we go home? Let's go the fudge home. Oh, fudge. Alright, once again I'm gonna read this to myself. Free. Sick music. And we got some music too. More just blah-de-blah. More blah-de-blah, just random nonsensical text here. If you make another visual novel, maybe less of this. Just saying. Maybe less of this. Manga. Ooh. Excuse me. Oh. I came up with a story about a pioneer camp and a guy from the future who ends up in it. Ooh. Well, well, well. The creator of the manga, the creator of Everlasting Summer, was this guy. Well, well, well. That was the most surprising thing I've read all day, guys. Maybe even in the last, 5 streams. Did he write all about the mods that existed in that game? The alternate stories? Oh, hi. You don't have to. Oh, it's the trailer song. Kagome was sitting across me while enjoying the omelet she'd made. Yes, she still cooked wonderfully, even though she did it less and less often. The business attire fit her perfectly. My memories of her baggy jumper and old jeans brought nothing but a smile. But I want it! Thank you. She smiled cutely but immediately changed the topic. Congratulations on releasing another one of you tankobons. Tankobons? Oh, whoops. Cars on a production line, you know? If you say so. Something had changed about her personality over the years. Maybe not even changed, but had become somewhat softer, not so radical and angular. And other things remained the same. I mean it, you're the person to say the one who's professional at what they do. I'm not saying you aren't. I really like the latest chapter. Thank you. I wanted to ask what exactly she liked about it, but I managed to restrain herself. What about your work? Is everything going as usual? What's as usual? As usual is as usual. Didn't want to delve into the boring specifics of a corporate accounting either. Happy that she at least ended up at Kobayashi Corporation. By the way, it had been a while since we last heard anything about them. You know, there is something new. Yeah, interesting. That's nice. Nice picture here. I leaned on the table and moved closer to her, supporting my head with my hands and making the most stupid grimace I was capable of. Not fully related to work. Fine, not related to work at all. It's even more interesting. You know that our company works with many foreign suppliers? Nico-san. She got annoyed. Some things never change. Fine, I'll be quiet. So recently, we were contacted by a Russian company. A lot of new business there about after the USSR fell apart. Really fell back and sat more comfortably in my chair. Even after the USSR dissolved and I had really thought about my homeland much, there were too many things to deal with my current life. And it looked like the fact that my motherland fell apart either. Well, they went to come to Japan, learn blah 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 negotiation. On the list of delegates I saw a surname. Shuddered and looked away, then I understood. Of course, Kagome would be the last person to regret the failure of the socialist state. Let me guess, Akira? Akira Shinji? Yes! Her eyes lit up and a happy smile appeared on her face. I don't want to ruin the moment, but don't you think he could have at least called first? Even if there's something left of the KGB, I'm sure they have more important things to deal with. Didn't talk much about her father. I think deep inside Kagome held the frail hope that her father was okay, and I wanted to destroy it with unnecessary conversations that would have changed anything anyway. I understand Nico's son, but he might have had reasons. Besides, there are many Japanese with his name, working and living in Russia. She suddenly raised her voice. Don't shout, it's not my fault. Sorry. Of course, first I had to ask myself why your father was even allowed to work for a private company. Although, to be honest, I had a very vague idea of what was happening in Russia. However, thinking logically, I had assumed that instead of searching for a job, he tried to return to Japan if he had the opportunity. I didn't want to disappoint Kagome. So when do they arrive? The beginning of next month. October, then, I said wistfully. Nico-san? I'm just thinking, how many years has it been since... 7, I think? Yes, 7. Kagome grew embarrassed. Girls remember these things better. What girls exactly? If you mean Ellie. Recently she met Ellie at some high society dinner party, though I didn't know the details. Hang on, give me a second to breathe again. Alright, we are... right at the end. Exciting. In any case, Kagome ignored my mention of Ellie. Don't you make notes? Notes? What? I asked with surprise. Well, notes for manga. Writers make those, don't they? I saw a lot of notepads full of those in your office. Well, why would I need to make notes? I remember events from my old life without them. Did in fact remember very well how many years had passed, although maybe I'd struggled to name a precise date. And the date of what exactly? The time when Kagome was bullied at the gate? Our first kiss? Escape from Tokyo? The conversation with Kobayashi-jun? Really, so when was it? She straightened out. What exactly? He said you remembered everything. That's the problem with remembering everything. If you start listing every event, you'll be late for work. Yes, after all, I can be late for work, but you can't. Why, if I stay in bed the whole day, I'll skip work in a sense. Nico-san, we aren't children anymore. I'm only 25. I got my entire life ahead of me. She suddenly went quiet, bit her lip, and turned away. What, isn't that right? You can only live for yourself. Did a question, a statement, or an invitation to start a philosophical dispute? Alright, fine. Put my hands on the table, locked my fingers, and made a serious face. I also live for you. That's good, of course, but at this moment, she really looked like that girl on the roof 7 years ago. I see you haven't run out of good news, for today. What are you talking about? It seemed to me that you want to tell me something, but can't quite bring yourself to. What makes you think so? I just sighed in response. She was embarrassed and, to be frank, looked quite stupid. You know that I'm a writer, right? A script writer, a manga author. Kagome got specifics for some reason. Yeah, right, doesn't matter. But if I had to write this sort of scene, I'd write it exactly like this. What scene, Nico-san? Kagome kept persisting even though she had been the one turning with her hints. Fine, you tell me when you're ready. Actually, I had a fountain of emotions inside me, but I managed to learn over 7 years that Kagome needed space in our relationship. She needed time to prepare for something. My job was to give as much of it to her as possible. So you aren't interested at all? She suddenly frowned. You don't want to tell me? Alright, you know what? I jumped off the chair quickly, collected the dishes from the table, and brought them to the sink. Nico-san? What? I returned to my seat and Kagome looked at me in a way that made me remember the time we went to the festival in that mining village. Wondered if they still had it. Probably did. Yeah, wouldn't it be a good idea to go there someday? It would be a good idea. So many memories. And that yukata had to be lying somewhere in the wardrobe. Wonder if Kagome would fit into it now. Nico-san? Yes. Turned into reality. Kagome reached out over the table and immediately took her hand in mine. Everything will work out for us. Ah, so nice. Female heroine. All of them are my favorite. My favorite was Miku. The Miku character. Especially, pioneer leader or a librarian. Did I do it, guys? Oh my god, that took forever. That took flippin' forever, guys. Well, that was Kagome's route. It is done. We have one more girl to go through now. One more girl. It's another song. Da da ba da 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 ba da ba. Kind of curious, like. I'm kind of curious. What am I curious about? I don't know. I just am, don't worry about it. Yeah, these stories have been good, but they're kind of lengthy. I'm at the point where I gotta move on to my next game, like somewhat soon. I think this one was the longest one, the longest of the stories. Probably the longest, I don't know. But it's over. The story is over with Kagome at long last. We did it. We done did the do it. Oh, this video is completely copyright claimed at the moment. With this song, the song that appeared earlier, the other song. Oh man. Tell me it's not. Tell me it's not copyright claimed right now. Special thank you. This is the long list of thank yous, by the way. The long, long list. Oh no, maybe not. Might be the Kickstarters. There's a Kickstarter option, then that's it. Aww. Ain't that nice? I think that's nice. She's smiling there. The end. I beat the game forever. Yes. Thank you. You're welcome. Well, like I said, I have one more to go, folks. One more flippin' thing to do. Alright. Let us now start the final girl, Ellie. At long last, it is time for the rock and roll portion of Love, Money, and Rock and Roll. At long last. And I saved it here, by the way. This is the closest spot I could get to. I gave it one last bit of effort, crawled to my bed, and zonked out. I fast-forwarded. I stood up, stretched myself, went to the bathroom only to run into Himitsu in the hallway. Nico-san! Good morning. I came to make your breakfast. Good morning. What? Mitsu blushed and lowered her eyes. All right. Yeah, I only had my underpants on. What of it? Eek! Today's Friday, Mitsu's joyfully said, finishing breakfast. Hooray! Finally! I jokingly mimicked her. Hey! In reality, all of my thoughts were occupied by yesterday's incident with Kagome. Definitely had to talk to her today. I didn't even notice when we reached school. Oh, Saya-chan! Mitsu explained and was about to approach her friend, but immediately stepped and gave me a guilty look. Go already. See you. Later. She smiled and ran off. I had things to take care of, too. Thoughtfully, I was walking through the school's yard. Sudden joyfully shouts coming from the pool reached my ears. Oh yeah, the pool scene. Don't forget about the pool scene. So this time, I'm assuming we're going to join Z Feelsy. We're going to become a band person at long last. I am ready, but we gotta deal with Kagome for a bit. I know, your father's been kidnapped or whatever. It's not good, but you're not the host this time. You're not the leader. Okay, here we go. Try to stop her. Stop! Hold on a second, I'm telling you, you'll only make the situation worse. I didn't want to say that she at least still had her grandfather, but that was the truth. We need to wait and think it through. But Kagome had no intention of listening to me, and I felt an inexplicable desire to do my own thing. I was absolutely sure she was wrong. Wait! I grabbed her arm again and jerked her to the street. Let go! Don't touch me! Her voice was quiet, even too quiet against the drunken hubbub of the restaurant. I understand how you feel, but acting on emotion will only make things worse. I promise we'll find your father. I dragged you into this and all. Kagome stopped trying to break free. Fine, in reality, we've just got common interest. We'll find your father. He... something. But right now you need to calm down. Blech. She stood pressed against the doors, her head hanging low. Understand what I'm saying? Kagome made a slight nod. What do we do now? Oh, so now it was us? Well, I really didn't want to draw attention to her choice of words right now. Did your grandfather say anything else? He's not young. She replied after a long pause. He gets things wrong, if at all, if not for me and a couple other employees, the restaurant would have long gone under. Hang on a minute. Long gone under. Really? He looks to be thriving from the outside. Ah, we read this already. Woo! Went to your class after lessons were done, but Kyosuke-kun said you left right away. Yeah, just couldn't bear to be in his company for another minute. Tried to make a joke, but Himitsu didn't seem to be in the mood. Yeah, sorry, Himitsu. Your story is long over by this point. Miles, months over. Really? Okay, come, dinner's on the table. She said in her usual dictatic tone, as if the events of the past week never happened. So how are you doing? To be honest, okay. Guess we're fast-forwarding through my conversation. Even though I'm the star, the head girl, or whatever. This is good. We're skipping a lot of dialogue here. A lot of dialogue is being skipped. I will not have to read this stuff ever again. Oh, hello, Kobayashi-jun. Going to the police would be useless. Alright. I'm going to lie. Nothing to tell, really. Why hurt her even more? If what Kobayashi said was true, Kagome would find out everything sooner or later anyway. I didn't want to be the messenger. Besides, she was impulsive, and the old man was clearly had let me know what could happen if we were to talk. In this case, I was just protecting Kagome. I spoke with Kobayashi-jun. Yeah, that one. He said he's very sorry about your father's disappearance, but he has nothing to do with it. You're lying. Kagome said confidently. No, I'm not. Why would I? Think about it. So the director of the Kobayashi Corporation himself called you just to say he doesn't know anything? That's what you should be asking him about. I snapped back. Yeah, my lie didn't sound very believable. And I will. She seemed to be ready to fight her way to the penthouse. Wait a damn minute. I grabbed her hand and almost threw her back onto the sofa. Don't you understand? They may be lying, but who are we and what's of Kobayashi Corp? And what's Kobayashi Corp? A single glance out of the windows of that office was enough for me to realize we were just ants to them. Hey, Mafia babe. You can't stay long running errands with your mom today? Aw, I gotcha. Mafia babe, good news. We're on the final route. At long last, we are on Ellie's route. At long flippin' last, my friend, we're here. We made it. And yeah, Kagome's ended pretty good. First, we kind of died, then we definitely died, and then we lived a happy life. Yay! So yep, we're on the final one now, finally. Would you feel sorry about crushing an ant? I think you wouldn't even noticed. Kagome bit her lip, lowered her head, and crossed her arms over her chest. It would be hard to imagine a more defensive pose. Need to be smart about this. And what do you suggest? I'm at least sure they have certain interest in us, otherwise they wouldn't even have had this talk. Yeah, I guess. She seemed to have calmed down a bit and was starting to see the situation without the haze of emotion. But I can't just sit and wait. To me, that seemed like the best course of action. But to say something like that to Kagome directly would mean another tantrum from her. Some local employee, I guess? Who came down for you just to lead you to meet the director of the whole corporation? Kagome thought uttered. So it seems. Don't you find this kind of strange? Gotta go now. Good luck, Mafia babe. Have a good time shopping and doing errands and stuff. Bye! Of course I do, but you're lying. She hissed through clenched teeth. Do you think I'm some kind of spy? Iwamura looked at me with an unabashed hatred. Oh, come on already, Kagome. The world doesn't revolve around you and your family. Do you just think I don't have problems of my own? Just a minute ago, I've been ashamed of my lies. But now I was genuinely angry with her. Why the hell would I drag myself along with you in the first place? You're of zero use, even less than that. I'm surprised we're not in prison. She tried to say something, but I continued. I've had enough of you. If you don't want my help, then dig yourself out of this alone. Do you call lying help? What would I gain from it, tell me? What reason do I have to lie? I'm only doing this for your sake, idiot. You know what? Even if I knew anything, I wouldn't have told you. You and your attitude would jeopardize you and me both. Yeah, you're just scared for yourself. Kagome smirked. What? Because you've got no one else? How dare... Physically felt the veins in my temples bulge. How dare you? Pat started to shake and she noticed. Well, do it. Come on. Hit me. Punch me properly. Her lips trembled. After all, I'm such a selfish brrr. I only think about myself trying to find my father. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I didn't mean anything like that. The long hair covered her face and only an occasional quiver of her shoulders, indicating that she was crying. I'll go. Kagome whispered, barely audible, and ran toward the exit. I didn't stop her. Did I feel guilty? Of course. But I just didn't expect a reaction like that. I'd already started to believe nothing could bring that girl to tears, and then that happened. And how would I have acted in her place? If I told my parents didn't die, then they just kind of didn't exist. Would I be thinking about the feelings of others or trying to get into the truth of any means available? It was hard to imagine, but Kagome was right. I was only worried about myself. If only because I had no one else to worry about. I let out a sigh and headed for the exit. On the other hand, why would I put up with her escapades? She was gonna come running back to me in no time, not like she had a choice. Who else would help her? I left Kobayashi Corporation's building and raised my head. From here, the penthouse looked as distant as the few clouds running through the sky over Tokyo. The financial side of this situation most probably didn't affect me as much as it did Kagome. Yes, I felt a certain trepidation standing in front of Kobayashi Jun, but it was because of him as a person who had achieved so much, not his money. I wanted to believe these two things could be equated blindly. The business district may not have been particularly crowded on Saturday, but the shopping streets were packed with people. I was naturally upset about the fight with Kagome, so I wandered around aimlessly. Japan is the world's leading supplier of electronics. Giant TVs, video recorders, gaming consoles, video cameras that could almost fit in your pocket, and even mobile phones. Here people could buy anything they wished for at affordable prices with a discount on a tick with minimal interest. To be honest, I was eyeing the shop windows, sometimes feeling a burning desire to buy this, and that over there too. But window shopping like this could be dangerous. After all, I had plenty of money. That is, if I were to forget I had to live another year off of it, and if not more. Sometimes I had to make a superhuman effort to not just spend it all in one go. Not on electronics alone either. There was also the clothes I didn't need, the useless alcohol and other sweets of life. I was keenly aware that this was just a way to compensate for the emptiness of my life, patching over my mental wounds. It was a foolish and, most importantly, absolute fruitless practice. Following the wonders of science were the wonders of Japanese creativity, anime and manga. The motley drawn heroes were practically jumping out of the posters, luring people into shops and cafes. Here you can meet a true friend and find an everlasting love, fight demons and save princesses, or maybe just see the boobs of a pretty classmate. Everyone has their own fetish. But of course it all wasn't real. I was sure it never discouraged Kyosuke. Actually, that too was a way to compensate for something. The desire to use someone else's fantasy to experience what's impossible in real life. But without all these simulacrums, what would we have left? A human conveyor belt where we were not producing but being produced. First preparation, then production, where humans assemble other humans and optimize the belt itself, and then finally you are shut down. I was far removed from this imaginative world, but for many people it was almost real and no less important than the belt. I should write a guide, Philosophy Through the Eyes of a Japanese High School Kid. Before I could finish the thought, someone ran into me. Ouch! Sorry, are you hurt? Look where you're going. She barked and immediately disappeared into the crowd. Was I really expecting love at first sight, in one of those stupid romance manga Kyosuke's shelves were filled with? Didn't even remember the girl's face. Ah! A limo stopped on the sidewalk next to me. Not much of a rarity around here, but I certainly didn't expect to see a person stepping out of it. Kobayashi Ellie in person, in a white dress. Oh, Ellie-sama. I shouted and was already about to approach her when an impressively sized bodyguard in a black suit and dark glasses stepped in front of me. The school bore. Ellie seemed to be in high spirits. It's fine. She called out to the bodyguard and he immediately disappeared somewhere. I have a name, actually. I never would have guessed. Nikolai, but you can call me Nick. Okay, Nick. She responded without hesitation. I wondered how many years it would take for Kagome just to call me by my first name. What are you doing here, Nick? Just taking a walk. We, the simple folk, tend to wander the streets aimlessly like that. And what are you doing here, Ojo-sama? Come on, stop it. She laughed and glanced back and forth conspicuous. I wanted to visit a music store. Oh, so that's what it is. I so theatrically looked around and whispered, Want to check the adult shop? I bet that's where you got your costume. Right. Alisa suddenly shouted, and I could almost feel the cold metal of a gun at my temple. You were at my concert. She continued quieter now. It was an accident, I swear to God. For some reason, it felt good to just poke fun at her. And for a while, I even forgot about my fight with Kagome and conversation with the head of the Kobayashi Corporation. Yes. Yeah, as if I'd believe that. Come on, think for yourself. We didn't even know each other just a week ago. And why did you come to my concert? I'm just a regular at the club. So you like rock music? She smiled slyly and even made me feel a bit uneasy. Well, yeah, kinda, but I guess not as much as you. Well, Ellie grew embarrassed. I don't think it's easy playing in a band. A shame you have to hide it. Although hiding it together is more fun. She blushed and looked aside, clearly remembering the time we hid together from the principal in a storeroom. Anyway, it's cool, and I of all people know a thing or two about being cool. Ellie laughed again. Never thought you were so. Her face expressed an extremely difficult cognitive process. Normal? Of course you're normal. I never said you weren't normal. Then what did you want to say? Tried to smile as charmingly as was humanly possible. Persistent. Ellie finally blurted out. Our keyboardist said you had a crush on me. I did not believe him at first, but now... Oh god, that weird guy again. You were right not to believe him. It took me a second to realize my words might be misunderstood. She looked surprised for a moment, then her expression soured. Of course I was right. And then there was silence. Ojo-sama, a bodyguard quietly called. Alright, I should get going actually. It was nice talking to you. But Ellie didn't let me leave so easily. Wait, do you want to? Whatever finishing school she went to clearly didn't have flirting classes. You want to go to the music store with me? Well, damn. The granddaughter of the director of Kobayashi Corporation herself was asking me out on a date. Or perhaps to her I was like an exotic animal from the other side of the globe. In any case, we certainly came from completely different worlds. Nothing stopped me from agreeing, but I remembered Kagome and her common problem. Was this really the time to be having fun? I'm gonna go with... agree. At that moment, it didn't cross my mind that I might be able to learn something about Ellie's grandfather from her. A normal girl stood out in front of me, maybe a little haughty, which wasn't surprising considering her family. Were the guards in the limo to disappear? Maybe the assumed haughtiness would go with them. Ellie looked at me expectantly. Why not? Let's go! We spent a good hour at the music store. Ellie had guitars and accessories, even played a couple of her own songs and a couple famous ones from the West. Thankfully, the bodyguards remained outside. No one paid attention to us, except maybe to Ellie's music. But she ended up not buying anything, which seemed to greatly upset the shop assistant who had spent the whole time obligatingly hovering around us. Aww. Listen, is your name really Elizabeth? How do you... She looked extremely surprised. Is it a secret? I heard it at school. Well, yeah, why? Nothing, just never would have thought. I grinned in good nature. You know what? She abruptly stopped, stopping her foot so the whole street seemed to freeze, afraid of the wrath of her mistress. Oh, come on, it's a normal European name, really. Take the word of someone who knows a thing or two about Europe. Uh-huh, sure. She smiled and spun in place, while her snow-white dress waved in the wind. She looked like a real ballerina. I grew a little embarrassed and averted my eyes, realizing that I was shamelessly staring at her. Although Ellie didn't seem to notice. We walked down the street, our bodyguards following in a considerable distance, the limo having completely disappeared from sight. Walking around like this really isn't bad at all. Is this really new to you? No. Well, maybe, she added, growing sad. In that case, I'm glad to keep you company. Yeah, when you're invited. Meaning when you're not peeping. She was clearly talking about the pool incident. I wasn't peeping. Alright, I'm joking. Can't figure you out. You're offended at 1 second and totally fine the next. Should I be offended? I would certainly prefer if you weren't. Although, to tell the truth, a reaction somewhat surprised me. So where are we going? Well, I don't know. Forward? Ellie looked at me incredulously. Where'd you like to go? I've never even been here. Only caught glances out of the car's windows. For a second, I felt sorry for her. We were almost at the edge of the shopping district, and I got an idea. Want to grab a bite? Sure. She immediately agreed. 10 minutes later, we approached the familiar bar. Ellie asked the bodyguards to wait outside, and we entered. Do come in. It's modest and unassuming, but full of heart. Seeing us, the bartender waved his hand and flashed a full smile of all his 32, or however many he had, teeth. Welcome to my restaurant. The restaurant part made me snort involuntarily. Each time with a new mistress, eh, Kolya? He had it in Russian, quieter now. Trap at you. I barked and saw Ellie to a table. This place is so unusual. She was studying the menu. Is the bartender Russian too? You seem to know each other well. Unfortunately. No way. Must be nice to have friends from your homeland. You know, I've somehow never thought of him that way. Plus I've been living in Japan most of my life. Don't you miss it at all? I guess I do. With the questions phrased that way, I didn't really know how to respond. I got used to it. Me too. You? To what? She tore herself from the menu and dreamingly looked to the side, then to the other. All she needed was a window to stare out of with languid eyes. Hey, you of all people certainly don't have time to be sad about. Don't have much to be sad about. You think so? Ellie smiled dolefully and ordered some sort of cocktail. I don't really know, but you've got your whole life planned out. You don't have to worry about anything. Is that a good thing? Depends on the person, I guess. I realized this was a bad topic. You think Grandpa will let me play music? Certainly not rock. Would you like to? I don't know. Maybe. I want to at least have a choice. And I mean a more substantial choice than what college I'm going to after finishing school. Wanted to ask if she could go against her grandfather's will, but couldn't bring myself to. If it was enough to imagine myself in the shoes of the heir to Kobayashi Corporation, and all questions disappeared. So, it's not clear which of us has no problems. Oh yeah, I got a splendid choice of paths in life from a janitor to laborer. You could also play music. Doesn't bring the most pleasant memories in a sense. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Some people it comes harder than to you. I played before, bass guitar. I was blatantly mediocre. Really? Interesting. Her interest was piqued. Were you in a band? No, just played for myself, at home. Why did you stop? Because I wasn't good. Not even Paganini had become a virtuoso second after taking a fiddlestick in his hands. I got bored of it. It happens often to me, with music, with classes. Why was I even telling her this? You probably don't have any problems with grades. It's not that hard if you put in some effort. After all, we're in high school, not studying rocket science. She certainly made it look simple. Our circumstances in life were polar opposites. She had the freedom, and mostly the ability of choice, while I had the freedom to do nothing. And at the same time, she envied me. I couldn't say if I would swap places with Ellie simply because I couldn't imagine what it would be like to live her life. You wouldn't like it. I chuckled. What do you mean? Being Nikolai Anokin. I was never up for it in the first place. That's for the better. The food finally arrived. We spent time at the bar, all the way to the evening, talking about music, school, music, even anime. Oh, it's so late already. I need to go. Nice talking to you. You too. I looked at the bill and took out some money while Ellie was having trouble finding something in her handbag. I think I forgot my purse. Hold on, I'll go to the boys for a second. No need, it's my treat. Now that's not right. Looks fine to me. In a different situation, we may not have gotten to know each other at all. Consider this a date. You wish. She off of the chair and flashed her eyes angrily. Don't play the tsundere. The tsundere? Harsh outside, shows a warmer, friendlier side over time. Often features in anime and manga. I scoffed. You can pay me back next time if you want. I'm not too prideful. Of course I will. Ellie grew embarrassed. Next time. She gave a short response and quickly walked out of the bar, saying as she left, Till next time then. Till the next time then. Damn, Kolya, you caught yourself up and you caught yourself one hell of a bird. The bartender immediately appeared beside me. Please, don't even start. I tossed the money on the table and left. I was like, goodbye. Opened the door and lingered at the entrance for a while. Yesterday, Himitsu said she'd be waiting for me, and now after everything I said to her, she certainly wasn't about to leave me alone. Hi, I said cheerfully, walking into the kitchen, but there was nobody there. No pots on the stove, no dinner on the table. Hey, I'm here! Mitsu's quiet voice came from my room. She was sitting on the bed, her arms cast around a giant pink stuffed elephant. God, what the hell is that? Genuinely laughed. I won it. Himitsu answered, offended. We went to the amusement park today. There was a shooting booth. And you got enough points to get this? I would have never guessed Himitsu had such good aim. Yes, it took several tries, though. How many is several exactly? Several is several. Alright, fine, but why did you drag it here? It's protecting me while you're away. Well, that's one tough protector. I approached the bed and slightly jerked the elephant by the trunk. Who from, though? From the people you went to meet today. Ah, that's what you mean. Let out a deep sigh and sat down next to her. It's complicated. It really was. Didn't even have to lie to Himitsu this time. I could simply relay everything that happened today to her, but would it make her feel better? In short, it's not about me. Not exactly about me. Things actually most concern Kagome's father. I hadn't learned anything about the notes and calls. So you have nothing to worry about. And neither do you, baby elephant. I patted the stuffed animal on the head. Are you telling the truth right now? I realize you have reasons to not trust me, and that's my fault. But I'm not hiding anything from you now. Cross my heart. Who was it you met with today? Looked like Himitsu had prepared her questions beforehand, and repeated them in her mind so many times that nothing could distract her now. Well, that was... No, I definitely couldn't tell her about Kagome. Not because Himitsu would get jealous at all. A relative of my father's colleague, the one I told you about yesterday. Tried to find out what happened to him. And what happened? Everything's fine. He's alive. Alive, she said ambiguously. I mean, he's in no danger. Trying very hard to help that person. No, I'm not. I flared up. The fight with Kagome was still fresh in my mind. The situation is just tied closely to mine. Or at least that's what I thought yesterday. And now? No, I'm not sure. Anyway, let's stop talking about this. It's night already. Are you hungry? Mitsu suddenly asked, sounding like the previous conversation had never happened. Yeah, I guess. I nodded and smiled embarrassingly. The dinner was light in all senses. Its weight, its volume, and the number of calories it contained. Would be rude to complain. Quickly gobbled down something that looked like a vegetable stew and sat behind the table, warming my hands with a surprisingly tasty cup of tea. Any plans for tomorrow? We're going to do a big cleanup at home. Oh, alright then. I was even a little glad I wouldn't have to lie to her again. I didn't know what I was going to do tomorrow, but considering the recent events, matters to tackle could find me themselves. And you? Haven't made any plans yet. Maybe I'll clean up too. Yeah, right. Have you ever done any housework? Of course I have. That was the truth, actually. Sometimes I really had to do laundry or prepare food. In extreme cases, ask someone for help to help. Who would ask? The person you were with today, for example. You're clearly trying hard for their sake. Himitsu, drop it already. Change the record. Let out a sigh. Or are you jealous? Of course I am. She pouted. You could have asked me, you know. Thankfully, the situation doesn't involve you. Not thankfully at all. Himitsu looked at the clock. Alright, I'll go. See you at school on Monday. Try not to oversleep. You'll drop by in the morning anyway. I definitely will. She said seriously. Good night then. Good night. To tell the truth, it was a bit early to go to sleep, but I was pretty tired, and Kagome's upset face still lingered in my mind's eye, gnawing at me. For some reason, I didn't really believe tomorrow would pass peacefully, and I would never find time to clean up. Misery loves company, as they say. It would be foolish to think this is how the situation would end. Even in the best-case scenario, it would end for me, but certainly not for Kagome. I already clearly understood I wouldn't be able to leave her alone with her problems. Not only because of a sense of guilt, but because of a different sense of guilt or something. I don't know. It's the 13th of September. Woo! God damn it. It seemed to have rained at night, but I slept like a log. I dreamt that someone was stealing my money. Small sums, a couple thousand yen at a time. A regular bully with no repercussion when I couldn't stop them. Happens often in dreams, the disgusting feeling of your own helplessness. Woke up and the same feeling of helplessness followed me to reality. They say that dreams are a way for the brain to rethink events of the preceding day, shake them up and make conclusions in the form of allegories. Did that mean that I wanted to but couldn't help Kagome? I guess so, but you didn't need to be a somnologist to know that. Us was quiet as always, no more than usual, but Himitsu wouldn't come today either. Cleaning is important. I rummaged through the refrigerator that laid out a selection of ingredients for a bachelor's breakfast, several eggs, a piece of moldy cheese, and a bottle of soy sauce. I had to get used to it. Things could get way worse from here on. Chewing on overcooked scrambled eggs, I meditated on what to do today. My thoughts were constantly jumping back to Kagome and her problems, the disappearance of her father and the conversation with Kobayashi-jun. Why had I lied to her? Was it really necessary? I didn't even know anymore. It was a moment's whim. Certainly I was doing the right thing. That's how critical decisions are sometimes taken. And if only it was just about me. But I hid that piece of information from Kagome, information important to her and her family. Who gave me the right to do something like that? Who could it be so early on Sunday morning? Sitting at the doorstep was Ellie. Hey, I've been passing by. I cautiously examined my street behind her, looking for a limo and her bodyguards. Don't worry, I'm alone. Smart girl. Must not have been the first time for her. I'm not worrying. Just didn't expect you. What brings you here? Here. She handed me a pinkish envelope covered in hearts and flower shapes. What's this? Well, open it and you'll see. Judging by how calm Ellie was, it clearly wasn't an invitation to wherever. Open the envelope to find several bills inside. For yesterday. You didn't have to bother. I told you it was a date. You wish. She pursed her lips and frowned. You also said you'd take the money. If you insist, mademoiselle. Indeed I do. Ellie smiled, and it seemed was about to leave, feeling her debt has been paid. By the way, how do you know where I live? I'm an Ojo-sama, remember? She gave me a coquettish glance. Would you like to come in, just for a cup of tea? That's all. It's Sunday. I guess I simply didn't want to stay alone with myself and the pressing feeling of guilt. Yes! Good. Even if right that moment, or I were turning to Kagome to apologize, what would it change? Would this be a date? If you want it to be. Ali glanced around and said in a kind of mysterious voice, if only for a little while. And what about your, Emma said, retinue? What about your boys? I'm alone today. Really? I was genuinely surprised. Do you think I'm some kind of princess in a high castle, that I only come out for concerts? No, but, well, yesterday you said, you have a big house, it's not hard to slip away when I need to. What happens if you're, well, caught? Ali's only response was a sad smile. Better not find out. Got it. You got a cozy place? Any brothers or sisters? No, I'm alone. Me too, she responded pensively. You have a cousin. So, yeah. Kind of a cousin. No, I mean completely alone. My parents died some time ago. I'm very sorry. Thanks, I'm used to it. At least that's what I sometimes think. And I often can't be alone, even if sometimes I really want to. I was looking at this girl and couldn't figure out what she was thinking. I was lonely, so I invited Ellie in. Did she agree to spend some time alone with herself? Did that make me a piece of furniture? I mean, I can leave. No, you misunderstood. She laughed and seemed to become even prettier than before. My chest tightened, and I remembered Catherine. Or rather, I realized it had been a while since I thought of her. In that sense, at least. I didn't really think any. I was interrupted by yet another ring of the doorbell. 2 visits in the same day? It's getting popular. Wait, I'll be right back. Think I'll go. I don't want to be a bother. Don't. I'm telling you, I'll be right back. Maybe it's the post. Post? Could I come up with anything dumber than that? Simply didn't have any idea as to who it could be. Coming, coming! The doorbell rang again, and this time longer and more annoyingly. He opened the door and saw Kagome. I'm not here to start an argument, she proclaimed from the get-go. I've got a new idea, and you're going to help me. I'd be glad to, but I'm kind of busy right now. You owe me for yesterday. She may have been right, but still some people always manage to choose the most unfortunate moments. You pace around, wind yourself up, constantly think of the best way to apologize. I don't know, sit on the toilet, for instance, and the person slams the door open with a kick and starts trying to sell you on some wild nonsense. Yeah, I do, but let's do it later. Next time I'll give you a call. No, we do it now. Kagome raised her voice. You don't understand, I'm not alone. So what? So nothing, damn it. The sound of footsteps came from the hallway. I froze in place, preparing for the worst. This was not good. I really should go. Oh, you're exactly who I need. Me? Do we know each other? No, but we will. My name is Iwamura Kagome. I want your grandfather, your damn corporation, to let my father go. Would this not have happened if I had to fight with Kagome yesterday? I don't understand what you're talking about. Your father? What does it have to do with Grandpa? Everything. She didn't even try to hide her anger, but still attempted to talk as calmly as she could, given the situation. Ellie shot me a questioning look. You see, the thing is, I don't want to drag you into this. She dragged herself into this. How exactly? By being a part of that accursed family. You know what? Ellie shot Kagome an angry glare, but I was sure she didn't simply know how to react. I do imagine that, and you'd better learn who your granddad really is and what his corporation does. Nick, I don't understand what she's on about. Ah, so you already knew each other. Listen, you may not care about me, but at least stop embarrassing yourself. The entire neighborhood is about to gather around this place. Do you want that? Let's talk inside. No, thank you. I'll go. You're not going anywhere, she said in a voice that really did make Ellie stop. Had to do something. It was obvious that Ellie had no connection to her grandfather's dealings, but she was still a Kobayashi. Fortunately, the sins of the father are a real thing, especially in Eastern societies. Either way, Kagome didn't give me a chance. I guarantee you that we'd better talk on good terms, unless you want the entire school to find out what you do at nighttime. How do you know everything? Kagome only smirked in response. Fine, Ellie uttered quietly. You don't have to do this. We'll just talk, right? Ellie smiled sadly. Soon the 3 of us were sitting in my kitchen. But what next? Just a couple of minutes ago in the street she looked as scared and lost, but now she had calmed down and regained her usual confidence, even a noble air. Just wanted to talk with your grandfather. Assuming you didn't lie, she grumbled under her breath. I would normally support, I would support Kagome, but we're gonna support Ellie! But if I were to tell Ellie everything now, she would most likely talk to her grandfather, and he clearly wasn't used to repeating himself. Wait, let's calm down first. Let's clam down first. I addressed Kagome. We don't know the entire truth yet, so it's too early to draw conclusions. And what do you want from Ellie? How can she help us? You're not going to tell her anything? She asked evenly, but I know full well this calm was only seeming. I can only tell what I know, but I can't impose my assumptions on others and make hasty conclusions. I see. Kagome said in the cool manner and stood up. What else can I expect from the likes of you? Leaving already, Iwamura-san? Ellie asked victoriously. Nothing left for me to do here. Not now, not ever. Wanted to stop her, but how would that look? Stop Kagome from leaving to let her continue Ellie's interrogation. After I had already decided to not drag the latter into this. When the door closed behind Kagome, loudly with an echoing slam, I even let out a sigh of relief. Sorry about her. Quite the temper. To be honest, I didn't really understand what this was all about. Well, how could I explain the situation without parroting Kagome? You're preparing to do a lot for her. Ellie smiled slyly. There's nothing between us, if that's what you mean. God, no. Why not? I think she likes you. Kagome likes me? Why do you think that? Feminine intuition? Nonsense. She was probably just poking fun at me in retaliation. No, we have a completely different relationship. A common interest, so to say. Interesting. And what is it about? She doesn't look like the person who gets along well with others. And by the way, what did you talk to my grandpa about? I kept a heroic silence, or was that another joke? Wouldn't say Kagome looked like a comedian. I don't hate her, if that's what you mean, but, well, just put yourself in my place. I understand. And still, she clearly believes what she says, so what was that about my grandpa? I had already decided that Ellie didn't have to know about our conversation, so I had to lie to the bitter end. Nothing much. And what was I going to do when Kagome herself would say what really had happened? I don't think you'll be able to help. Certainly not, and if I don't even know what I meant to help with. It's been a delicate question. In short, you just don't want to tell me. Believe me, I've had enough time to learn every conversational tactic out there. Fine, I'm convinced. I have reason to believe that your grandfather is somehow connected to the disappearance of Kagome's father. And? What? Surely he had his reasons. Maybe your father, I don't know, had done something unlawful. She was perceptive. That's why I don't want to jump to conclusions. I don't think you should tell anyone about what happened. Scared? Ellie smirked. Let's say I exercise advisable caution. Fine, if you say so. She stood up from the chair and walked around the kitchen. You've got a nice house. It's cute. Did you want to say small? No, I wanted to say cute. Living in a mansion with 2 or 3 occupied rooms out of 100 is a strange luxury. I've only got the one. I moved in the direction of my room. Want to see the house then, if you're curious? In my room, she immediately noticed the bass guitar. Pity you don't play anymore. Oh, come on, I wouldn't be any good anyway. Can I try it? My chest suddenly felt tight. The very thought that Ellie was going to play my bass guitar made me feel uncomfortable. A regular guitar, her vocals, whatever. Whatever. I didn't really care. But she could probably play the bass better than I ever could have. It's not tuned. I'll tune it. How about another time? I said seriously. Greedy pants. She pouted. I've just got a lot of stuff to do. Like what? Like cleaning. I managed to think of something. I'm supposed to be cleaning today. I'll change the bass strings too. You can play it another time. Does that mean you're confident that there will be another time? I'm not. That's not what I meant. Relax. She laughed. If you take everything that seriously, you'll grow old quick. Isn't 18 a bit too early to think about getting old? I wasn't even sure I'd live long enough. Grandpa says that I also don't think about the future at all. Well, do you? Yes, naively. Of course I do. Same as anyone. Sometimes. I think I'm gonna save it here, folks. Right on top of this save here. Yay. Alright. The final story has begun, guys. At long last. Let's check the gallery one more time. How many more songs? There's Arctic lakes in your pure eyes. embers, everlasting reference, fast lane of love. One day in the limelight. And that's it for backgrounds. One there, two here, and two here. Ho ho. Hey, this one's done finally. There's one there, 4 here, 2 here, 2 here, a bunch here, and 1 here. And then it's all over. Wow. Well, guys, tomorrow we'll be starting Ellie's chapter, and the road to the end will happen. I'm excited. I'm ready. But yeah, take care, guys. Golden Sun tonight. See y'all later. Bye!